When this guy enters the academy, he immediately knocks down all the training dummies with a single strike, and it's not even a sword strike. The attack is delivered solely through his concentrated mana. Its power is so overwhelming that the instructor can't believe her eyes. She has never seen an ordinary freshman from the countryside possess such strength. The sheer power terrifies her and makes her wonder what the hell he really is. And when it comes time for the duels, the pathetic fights of the other students are boring to watch. Ronan, on the other hand, simply picks up a dull wooden training sword and slices straight through his noble opponent's spear. When the enraged nobleman charges at him, Ronan beats him down like a piece of meat. The other noble students watch the whole thing unfold and immediately lose their courage. Just moments ago, they were looking down on him because of his background. Now they're backing away, hoping they won't have to fight him next. And that's not surprising. After all, he's actually a regressor who once fought the gods that invaded this world. Here's how his story started. It is day one of his regression. Under the shade of a tree, Ronan tries to process everything that has just happened. He never imagined that the Grand Commander's words would actually come true. His mind drifts back to the memory of their kiss, the moment that became the turning point in the chaos of the battlefield. That was when Adishan placed a blue orb in his mouth, the very thing that has now turned back time. He recalls her explaining that it was the reason she, once a tailor, was able to rise all the way to the position of Grand Commander. Commander explains that the orb grants a total of 4 regressions, but she has already used it 3 times, leaving only this final chance. For that reason, she told him she was entrusting it to him now. She tells Prince Charm she believes he is the key to stopping the world's destruction, the one person with the strength to bring down the giants. To make it happen, she instructs him to hone his abilities, noting with some satisfaction that he already carries the drive to improve himself. She has seen that spark in him, especially in his desire to attend the academy. If he truly wishes to learn, she tells him, then he must set his sights on Filian Academy and move forward without hesitation. No wonder, Filian Academy is home to remarkable people who could help our hero grow in his learning. Before parting, Adishan makes one more request, that when he meets her past self, he should tell her not to do anything reckless and instead become a tailor. She admits to having done many things in her life, but nothing quite like that. Back in the present moment, Ronan finds himself banging his head lightly against the tree, hoping he might wake from what feels like a dream. Yet the thought lingers that if he truly has returned to the past, he has no idea what he is supposed to do on his own. Pushing himself up, he decides to take a look around his hometown as it once was. Then his mind catches up with the reality. If this really is the past, it means he can see his older sister again. At that moment, he snatches up a stick and pushes his way through the busy crowd. A smile tugs at his lips, knowing that if he goes just a little further, he might finally see her. But the sight ahead wipes away that warmth. A group of punks stand under a tree, laughing as they dangle a kid upside down from one of its branches. Ronan cannot believe these jerks have not changed one bit, even in the past. Then he notices something that stops him in his tracks. The child is not hanging by a rope, but is being held there by magic, a sight that catches him completely off guard. Magic users of this caliber were rare even on the battlefield, and the thought of finding one here, in a quiet countryside town, feels almost unreal. Although our hero is fairly certain they were around here at this time, another kid nearby, shivering as he wonders how long these thugs will keep tormenting the boy and what will happen to him. The child begs them to stop, insisting he has no money. He explains that his mother's medicine was especially expensive this month. The head of the jerk says it is not his problem, emptying the boy's pockets as if the mention of his mother's health means nothing. Then, with no hesitation, the scumbag slaps the boy hard and tells him that if he is trying to be a filial son, he should have earned the money himself. At his shout for more, Mr. Goldilocks orders the Asel to lift the boy to the top of the tree to make him come to his senses. The cutie looks uneasy, admitting he is afraid the boy might slip if he goes any higher. The head of the jerks tells him to man up and stop acting like a girl, snapping at Dolfaceto quit behaving as if he is the one hanging there. He warns her to hurry, or he will end up hanging alongside the child. The whole mess makes Asel wonder if it was a mistake to learn magic in the first place, when all he ever wanted was to prove that he is good at something too. The boy never thought his life would come to this, and with tears in his eyes, he admits he is too afraid to go on. He tries to stop them, but his voice does not reach the jerks, until Ronan smacks his head and warns him to quit the nonsense, or else he will kill the kid. Asel's focus breaks and the child drops to the ground, infuriating Goldilocks. The punk charges at the cutie, raging that he stopped just because some nobody told him to. The pretty boy panics, insisting it was not on purpose, but our hero cuts in, telling him not to worry about trash like that. Dollface listens as he insists on having a talk, asking where he learned telekinesis. Asel explains he learned it from a grimoire he bought from a peddler, and Ronan is stunned that he could be this skilled with such a cheap book. For now, it feels incredible, and our hero is certain he can learn even more after seeing a little further. As Ronan's thoughts drift to giants, his eyes widen at the sudden glint of a sword in Blondie's hand. The jerk looks furious, clearly offended at being ignored by what he sees as small fries. His glare locks on our hero, and he recalls the time he purposefully lost to him in the past. But today, he makes it clear through every movement and word that he intends to correct those manners. Our boy is certain it is a real longsword, though he has no idea where this punk managed to get it. His posture is sloppy, but he is strong enough to make it work against most people around here. Against Ronan, however, that is not happening. Blondie's eyes widen in disbelief as our boy slips past his first attack like it is nothing. In that instant, our boy feels his battle sense return in full, the discipline and instinct forged in him as a soldier still sharp even in this younger body. Blondie starts laughing, convinced Prince Charm only got lucky, claiming he was moments away from taking his fingers so he could never lift a spoon again. Ronan mocks him in return, saying luck must be on his side today, even if life has never been kind to him. Blondie's expression hardens as he demands Prince Charm kneel and beg for his life, promising to let him leave with only one arm. He adds with smug cruelty that after Prince Charm's death, he will be sure to treat his sister well, then admits he thinks about her round hips every time he sees her. Just as the word sister reaches his ears, Ronan's fury explodes, and in a split second he slices off Blondie's ear. It takes Blondie a moment to register what has happened before the pain crashes into him. Prince Charm stands steady, glaring at Blondie to ask if this jerk is looking to die here. Blondie's on his knees, while his chumps are practically stunned to watch Ronan cut off his ear, and that too with a stick. Prince Charm asks the chumps if they are enjoying the show. He stomps at Blondie, asking the pricks to get this guy and get the hell out of here before they end up just like him. Plus, he requires the money they stole, as well as the cost for ruining his mood. The scums are ready to pay the toll. Later, the hero hands the victim a bag of money the kid never expected to see again. The boy hesitates, asking if it is really okay to take so much, especially since that gang had not stolen nearly this amount from him. Ronan waves off the concern, saying he only cares about keeping the sword, and assures him there is no need to worry about them coming back, as they will not have the courage to show their faces again. The boy thanks him, while Estelle lingers awkwardly in the background. Suddenly, Femboy blurts out an apology for tormenting the boy alongside Hans, admitting he knew it was wrong even if Blondie had threatened him. Dropping to his knees, he confesses he was simply too scared to resist. The boy reminds Estelle that he had been crying the same way when Hans dragged him here, practically in the same mess as him, so it's not his fault at all. Nevertheless, he appreciates his apology. After parting ways, Ronan draws her attention back to Pretty Boy, and he believes this girl isn't so bad. The hero mentions that he had business with Dollface earlier and plans to meet her here again in 4 days. This feels strange to her, so she asks what this is about. He says he is busy for now, but they will meet when the moon is up in the night sky, and before walking out, he warns her to make sure she comes, or she is dead if she is late. Then, he eventually arrives at the house, wondering if the flowers might be too much, but remembering she liked them, he picked everyone he saw along the way. While he is grumbling at the flowers in mild frustration, a woman's voice drifts toward him, asking if it is Ronan. The woman is overjoyed to see the hero again, and he stands stunned, realizing he is finally looking at his sister. During his years as a disciplinary soldier, he imagined 1,000 different ways to greet her when this moment came. He thought about apologizing for leaving without a word or simply telling her how much he missed her, thoughts that circled endlessly in his mind. Yet now, all he can manage is the simplest thing. His sister smiles warmly, remarking that he is home early today, and Ronan settles for saying he is back. The table is already filled with food, and Irel, his older sister, is startled when her usually cold brother hands her flowers. She lets out a joyous cry, saying she never thought she would live to see such a day, and with genuine care she asks if her cute little brother would like something more to eat, or perhaps more stew. Ronan waves her off, insisting he has had enough already, but then casually asks to confirm her age, which she replies is 22. She tilts her head, surprised he would forget such a thing, and wonders aloud if he has a fever or has hit his head. Lord Ronan's thoughts drift to the grim reality that there are 10 years until Ahayute invades, yet as he looks at Iril, he realizes she is just the same as she has always been. With her bright, kind, and warm nature, Iril makes Ronan wish this moment could last forever. Yet he knows that to protect his sister and the world from Ahayute's destruction in 10 years, he must do what is necessary. Drawing her attention, he finally admits his intention to join the academy. The confession sends Iril over the moon, especially since he never listened whenever she brought it up before. She rushes about the room declaring she has no time for this. She always knew this day might come, and assuring him that because he is smart, he will excel at anything. Then, she produces his surprise gift, a cauldron full of money she has been saving to afford the academy if he ever changed his mind. Lord Ronan is at a loss for words, moved by the effort she has made, but he knows it will not be enough. Iril, however, is certain this will make it happen, until she learns that Ronan's goal is none other than the Imperial School, Filian Academy. The revelation is enough to make her scream in shock. The Imperial School of Filian Academy stands as the Empire's foremost educational institution, celebrated for its unmatched standards and prestige. With the continent's most exceptional professors and the generous backing of the imperial family, it delivers an education of the highest caliber. This factory of heroes has shaped the brightest minds of the age, including Grand Commander Adashan, Swordsmaster Shulifen, and even the most infamous criminal, the Winter Witch, among many others. Commander once remarked that Filian's men proved remarkably useful during the war, a statement that made perfect sense to Ronan. Yet the fame of this place comes with its own obstacles, from sky-high entrance standards to staggering fees. Even so, Lord Ronan's main concern is his sister's reaction, as she glitched like a wind-up doll trying to support his choice. Regardless, he is determined to prove himself and show her results. Before that, Ronan hadn't expected the girl, Mazel, to be here at all. She quickly corrected him. Her name is Asel, and reminded him that his earlier threats had left her with no choice but to show up. Lord Ronan adds that they had a busy night ahead, so let's forget that part. He explains that he has plans to test her on something. Then Lord Ronan comes right out with it. He wants Pretty Boy to use her telekinesis to lift him as high as possible, and yes, he's giving his full consent. The sudden request leaves her sweating. It's not every day someone asks to be flung skyward like a sack of grain. She hesitates, aware of how dangerous the stunt could be, but Ronan is insistent, making it clear she's to do exactly as he says. Our boy assures her he won't die from it, so Dollface finally gets on board, conjuring an invisible hand to lift him into the air. The moment it happens, he's stunned. It feels far better than he imagined. Still, he can't help thinking she can do better. The height is lacking, and the stability wavers. During his battle with a Hayute, this exact sensation flashes through his mind. Telekinesis was the very thing that let him fight the giant on equal terms. There's no doubt in his mind now. Telekinesis is a rare ability among even the rarest mages, and Asel might just be the key to his next battle against a Hayute. While Ronan's busy enjoying his wild train of thought, Asel is struggling to keep her focus, admitting it's getting harder to hold him up. He tells her to hang on just a little longer. He's got one more thing to test. Then, without warning, he drops himself, slashing his sword through the air mid-fall and severing her mana in an instant. Asel's caught completely off guard by Ronan's sudden stunt, demanding to know what he just pulled. Our boy shrugs it off with a flimsy excuse, saying it's just an acrobatic move he's been able to do for a long time. She's not buying it, pressing him for answers, until he finally tells the kid to just drop it. He doesn't fully understand it himself. In truth, our boy knows this is one piece of homework he's still stuck with, figuring out his own ability, especially why his sword had worked against the giant. He intends to think it over slowly, but there's something more urgent to do first. He reassures Asel that she's passed the test, then tosses her a bag and tells her to follow before the moon disappears. When she asks what for, he grins and says it might be the first page of his biography, the Empire's greatest history book. On their way, Asel is surprised to hear they are heading toward Filian Academy, a place reserved for the Empire's elite. Ronan grows annoyed with her questions, asking if she doesn't want to come. She admits that while our boy has talent for martial arts, she knows nothing and accepts being cowardly and timid. Ronan challenges her, asking if she wants to live like that, pointing out that with her innate talent, she's just wasting her powers on meaningless pranks. He bluntly admits he sees her foolish side, as a coward, a crybaby, and someone easily scared. Asel feels like she could throw up. Ronan insists it's nothing permanent and that change is possible, but time will not wait, and one day she'll regret letting it pass by. He recalls his own regrets from his past life, but snaps her out of her shock, though she is too stunned to believe anyone cares so much about her. Our boy offers her a choice to turn back, reminding her it's her life, and he won't force her. As he starts to walk away, Asel shouts that she wants to change, that she wants to go to Filian with him and learn from him. Prince Charm feels glad to have word-trapped Asel into this. For the first time, he sees a spark of courage in her, a hint of manliness he hadn't noticed before. Now it's time to present the first hurdle for this manly dollface as they begin their mission. Meanwhile, Ronan smirks like a scoundrel, enjoying how easily he's manipulated her into it. Upon seeing her first obstacle, she gets a chill run down her spine. Prince Charm reveals the opponent he's chosen to test her skills, a lunar goblin leader. Excitement lights up Ronan's face, while hers turns utterly pale. With a grin, he asks if they should begin now. Lunar goblins are a common sight in this area, easily distinguished from regular goblins by their yellow skin and disfigured bodies. But their most unique trait is their obsession with treasure. They go wild over any loot they can find. These creatures often ambush merchants to steal their goods, gathering everything in one place to hold a festival on nights with a full moon, just like tonight. Asel is quick to figure out that they're here to steal all the treasure today. Asel never imagined hearing something like that, and what surprises her even more is that Ronan knows such details. Still, he keeps his past life a secret, refusing to reveal how he knows. Putting that aside, this cunning guy wants Pretty Boy to use her telekinesis to move all the treasure into the bag he's handing her while the goblins sleep. A second passes, and Asel starts doubting herself, worried she might make a mistake and wake them up, which would only make things worse. She considers taking a moment to think it over, but Ronan quickly calls her a coward. He explains they need two things to get into Filian Academy. First, the money to afford the insanely high tuition fees, and second, real experience. Even if money is a problem, Prince Charm insists that gaining experience is far more important to secure their enrollment. After knowing Filion is filled with aristocrats who have trained since birth, Ronan explains there's only one way to beat them by gaining real experience through risking their lives. For him, the lunar goblins are the perfect opponents to earn both money and experience, killing two birds with one stone. Still, Asel, a first-class coward, asks if he has a better idea, but Ronan has already decided to stick with this plan. As they begin, Pretty Boy's telekinesis proves invaluable in filling the bags quickly. She pushes close to her limit, but Prince Charm orders her to stop once the last bag is full. He pats her on the back, saying this kind of experience is the best. Honestly, he wasn't confident they'd pull it off, and he never imagined she'd adapt so fast and perform even better than expected. This wicked freak claims he's found a really good minion. Since the bags are full, they decide to get going before anything goes wrong. Somewhere in the forest, men are chasing a trash-talking bird, and the noise catches the duo off guard. Hotshot wonders what kind of psychos are causing a commotion in the middle of the night. To their bad luck, the lunar goblins wake up, shocked to find their treasure chest empty. One goblin wakes the others, shouting that they've been robbed. Unfortunately, Ronan and Asel are exposed near the bushes, making it obvious they're the main suspects. Femboy's face turns pale while the goblins charge headfirst toward them, desperate to reclaim what's theirs. In his defense, Hotshot actually finds it odd for everything to go this well, as it was too good to be true. Asel suggests they throw the bags and run for their lives, but Ronan's not the one to give up their tuition. Ronan asks if Pretty Boy's really planning to earn their tuition fee this way, because there's no other way to afford Filion. She points out that's not what matters right now, but the goblins are practically inches away. Ronan whips out his cheap longsword, confident it can withstand maybe 15 strikes against 30 goblins. In a split second, he unleashes a flurry of 15 attacks, chopping off their heads, leaving 14 still standing. As the crows caw loudly, goblin heads crash to the ground one after another. Hotshot lands the final blow and realizes this wasn't as bad as he thought. Asel can hardly believe her eyes, watching Ronan behead 3 goblins in a single strike, head on. She's even more stunned by his swift combat against the goblin mob that follows. Her jaw drops as she sees him vanish for a moment and reappear instantly, slashing through goblins one after another with ease. Hotshot, catching her zoning out, turns and asks if she's going to keep spacing out like that. He tells her to hurry up and grab her things because they're heading home. On their way back, Ronan didn't expect the journey to be so uncomfortable, but by now, he no longer expects anything to go smoothly. He notices his muscles aching, maybe from all the goblin fighting or perhaps because he's still growing. Determined, he decides it's time for some hardcore physical training. Meanwhile, Asel finally summons the courage to ask about the horrific shriek they heard earlier. Ronan admits he doesn't know either, his memory's hazy, and wonders why there were screams in the middle of the night. He tells Asel to hold on tight, promising he'll make sure to pay for making this so difficult. Amidst the tension, an arrow suddenly flies through the air aimed at Asel, who barely sees it in time. Ronan reacts instinctively, catching the arrow mid-flight, leaving Dollface wide-eyed and shocked at his unexpected skill. She asks where the arrow came from, but Hotshot's frustration quickly surfaces as he mutters that this forest feels cursed, full of crazed fools lurking in the shadows. Moments later, 2 young men leap into view, demanding to know who they are. When they realize Ronan and Asel are just children, Hotshot's irritation grows. The men apologize for startling them, explaining they heard rustling in the bushes and feared it must be a monster. Ronan isn't fooled by their act. When the 2 men ask if the kids are hurt anywhere, our boy tells them it's all written on their faces, and they can't hide the look in their eyes. He demands they drop the act and reveal who they really are. Sensing serious trouble, one of the men nervously steps forward, trying to introduce himself, but suddenly draws his blade against our boy. The man says his name is Caliboro, which immediately raises the hero's suspicion. Without hesitation, the hero grabs his wrist mid-strike and delivers a sharp punch to his face. The other man snaps in anger, drawing his blade, but Asel quickly senses the danger and uses her telekinesis to freeze him in place, alerting Ronan. The hero enjoys the sight as he swiftly disarms the man and delivers multiple precise slashes. Before he can say a word, Pretty Boy watches in shock as Ronan ruthlessly butchers the man, confirming he's killing him on purpose. Ronan defends his actions by explaining that these men are Caliboro, infamous for poaching, kidnapping, human trafficking, and every other crime imaginable. They are the Empire's most dangerous criminals. He points out that if it weren't for him, Asel's organs would have been harvested by now, and she'd be buried in secret. Letting these men live after knowing their identity would be a crime. In the middle of the hero's speech, Caliboro's bag suddenly begins to levitate, startling the 2 of them. Then, Ronan opens the bag and lets loose a bird that dives out. He wonders aloud what this chicken-like creature is. With the bird freed, Ronan and Asel are caught off guard as the chicken-like creature flutters over him, its feathers an unexpectedly vivid blue. Asel's eyes light up with excitement, for it is the first time in her life she has ever seen a blue-feathered bird. Ronan's thoughts drift to Caliboro's trap, the infamous poaching shackle, a device that disrupts a prisoner's mana and restricts movement, typically reserved for rare cases or the capture of fantastical creatures. While he tries to make sense of why such a device would be used here, the bird suddenly manages to link with them, and Asel freezes when she hears it speak. Panic flashes across her face, but the Rizzler remains calm, assuring her that it is only communication magic. The bird wastes no time speaking the moment it is freed, leading Ronan to suspect that the bag it was kept in had been blocking its mana. He guesses the speaker must be the bluebird's owner. Introducing itself as Varen, the voice explains that it is currently researching fantastical beasts at the institution and is also the guardian of Morpez. Voran adds that his communication magic had stopped working, so he was on the verge of finishing a report, but the issue is now resolved. When asked about their involvement, Ronan casually replies that they are simply righteous passers-by who ended up in a fight with poachers who had kidnapped the bird, leaving the rest of the bloody memories all unspoken. The Rizzler ends by saying he saved the bird, and panic flickers across Varen's face before easing into relief. Though clearly indebted, Varen has no idea how to repay him. Ronan brushes it off, instead asking how they can return the bird, noting its exhaustion from being chained. After removing the cuffs, the man guesses the bird will fly better, and Varen agrees, knowing this little one has a strong homing instinct. With a single swing of his blade, the chain snaps, and Bluey is ready to go back to his father, thanks to this charming lad. Suddenly, the bird shoves its rear toward Ronan's face, leaving him puzzled. Varen explains that Bluey wants him to pluck a feather before leaving, as a dream bird's feather works like a compass to guide its main body. It's his way of wanting to meet the Rizzler again. He adds that if our boy ever comes to the institution, he should visit Morpez and him, strongly promising to repay him. Bluey takes off into the sky, and Asel notices something on our boy's head that stings him slightly, though neither of them can tell what it is. A few days later, Duan Carabel, the owner of the Carabel merchantry, tries to buy the jewel for 20 gold coins, impressed by its value and craftsmanship. The old man calls it his lucky day to see such a fine item, and Ronan is pleased to have a customer who appreciates his service, relieved to meet someone who understands him. Before this, he had dealt with scamming merchants who dismissed his treasures as worthless and offered only 5 gold coins, which infuriated him. Finding such a conscientious merchant makes his efforts feel worthwhile. Alongside the jewel, Ronan takes out a purplish egg for appraisal, though Duan makes it clear he does not want to buy it, only to know what it is. It turns out to be what the dream bird left behind. At first, our boy thought the bird had repaid his kindness with poop droppings, but it was actually an egg. He, curious about its strength, once hurled it at a boulder, only to see it carve a hole into the rock, proving it is a remarkably tough item. Though unsure if it's truly the bird's egg, the time traveler suspects it's at least a byproduct of such a rare, fantastical creature, and possibly a valuable treasure. Duan studies its color and texture, making Ronan think it's promising, but then casually guesses it to be horse poop. After bruising our boy's pride, Duan laughs it off, calling it an unusual object and suggesting he take it to a specialized appraiser. Even Asel wonders if it might actually be hardened poop, while our boy plays it cool, secretly too curious to sell it anyway. Ronan takes the chance to ask Duan if he sells books about Filian Academy, mentioning their plans to take the entrance exam. Duan is surprised, mentioning that his daughter is also applying. He adds that she might be able to help them. Just then, Duan's only daughter, Maria, enters. Ronan is caught off guard to learn she's Duan's daughter. Duan proudly introduces them as important customers with whom he just closed a big deal. Senpai, unimpressed, teases her father for doing business with little babies, which irritates Duan, though Asel quickly calms him down. Ronan, intrigued, asks Maria if her middle name is Sen, surprising her with how much he knows. He can't help but notice how much she resembles someone he knows, and leans in to quietly ask if she has a sausage down there, which pretty much ticks her off. Maria stares at Ronan in disbelief, wondering what kind of nonsense she just heard from this random nobody. Meanwhile, our boy is lost in thought, noting she definitely doesn't seem to have a sausage, which only pushes her patience to the breaking point. He starts wondering if Duan might have another child he doesn't know about. Before he can think further, Senpai snaps, slapping Ronan hard for being such a jerk. The moment the sting hits his cheek, our boy feels an oddly familiar sensation, certain it carries the same vibe as that man, Count Maria Sen. Back in his disciplinary soldier days, Ronan served in Armarlin, where Senpai was in charge of supplies. Known for a strong work ethic and an easygoing nature that let him get along with anyone, Maria was an impressive guy. However, he had one strange quirk. This guy would fly into a rage whenever men talked about their dongs. Worse yet, he had a habit of slapping people on the spot when triggered. This time traveler had always been curious about the reason behind this odd behavior, and planned to ask one day, but never got the chance since Maria died before he could. Ronan never expected to get his answer here, that Senpai had been a woman all along. Still fuming at his laughter, she lunged in for another slap. Our boy, not in the mood to take more of this, smacked her on the head, reasoning that he'd accepted the first hit since he was in the wrong, but this was pushing it. Maria's fury didn't fade. She wanted to slap him again simply because he deserved it. The two clashed back and forth while Asel and Duan stood frozen, stunned by the scene, before shouting at them to stop the violence. Afterward, Asel still couldn't figure out why Maria and Ronan had fought like they were out for blood, only to suddenly be getting along. Now, the two dimwits were side by side, casually inspecting the swords on the table to decide which to buy. Next, Senpai questions why they're leaving 3 swords and a magic wand behind, thinking it might be hard to carry them all. Prince Charm explains that his sword use is still a bit rough for now. When asked, Maria says the swords aren't bad, but the black iron one feels the best, as black iron is a sturdy material highly sought after by renowned knights. Plus, Senpai's pretty sure this sword won't break from Prince Charm's rough use. Ronan recalls the black iron sword being his first weapon in the past. Maria then points out that the wand has a good magic stone and quickly figures out that this cutie is a rare mage of some sort. Asel blushes when Senpai asks about her type of magic, and she answers that it's telekinesis. Maria is surprised the cutie wields such amazing magic that could earn her a sweet scholarship. However, she considers Ronan and herself the problem, asking what special technique he plans to use to impress them during the practical exam. Ronan's dumbfounded, so Maria breaks it down. The practical exam is all about impressing professors with their techniques to get into Filion. No wonder the theory test is tough too, but in a different way. Simply put, if they do well in the practical, they pass. If not, they should drop their dream of entering Filion's gates. Ronan's stunned. He thought a swordsman just needed swordsmanship, so what's with all this? When he asks, Maria explains that nobles show off their family's secret techniques, while martial artists and other applicants demonstrate personal mana combat skills. Prince Charm's shocked to hear that kids his age can use mana even without being mages. Maria's even more shocked that he doesn't know that. For prospective Filion students, sensing and using mana is a given, something he should have noticed from the start. Mana is combat one-on-one in Filion. Reading his clueless expression, she's floored to realize this big shot can't sense mana at all. When Ronan compares it to sensing auras, she nearly loses it with him for daring to lump aura and mana together. Without another word, she orders him outside, borrowing his short sword since hers are still at the blacksmith. On the way, Prince Charm angrily asks what if she damages his sword. Maria assures him she'll pay double or triple if that happens, saying she's giving him special training. She explains that mana is the root source of nature's power, like air, present everywhere, but not just anyone can use it. To wield it, one must see and feel their own mana, then use mana sense to progress, train inner talent, and so on. Usually it takes a year to start sensing mana, and Filion's applicants surpass this stage before applying, already mastering their personal mana techniques. After explaining, Maria is baffled that Ronan can't even sense mana or aura, yet plans to enter Filion. She explains that aura is a type of mana, but the difference between them is like the sky and the earth. Those acknowledged for their talent usually have at least 10 years of training, and only through blood-curdling effort do they barely awaken the innate power known as aura. Thinking back, Prince Charm remembers meeting aura users on the battlefield, flaunting strange powers. Annoying as they were, their abilities were undeniably impressive, even if they still died when cut down. Maria begins the training, believing Ronan might learn quickly if he relies on his body instead of his head. Just as Prince Charm is thinking she's only a young girl, she suddenly dives at him, catching him off guard. Their swords clash, and Ronan finds himself impressed by her sudden, aggressive charge. Their swords clash, and Ronan's impressed by Maria's sudden, powerful charge, especially for someone so young. Seeing her wield 2 blades shocks him further, making him wonder if it's a mana-based style. Meanwhile, Senpai is surprised by how he handles her sudden attack. She had planned to finish him in one blow, to show the power of mana and make him give up on the entrance test. In her mind, it was better for him to quit than face humiliation at the testing grounds. But now, the situation is completely different. Instead of dominating, she finds herself pushed back by this so-called amateur. Maybe this is the kind of skill that only someone who can't use mana could possess. Amid the fight, Ronan notices Maria lost in thought and asks what she's thinking, besides dodging over blocking. He keeps pressing forward, forcing her back. She retreats, admitting that hesitating would have been bad. Still, she adds he's not normal, something Prince Charm thinks of her too. Aside from her mana use, Senpai finds Ronan surprisingly skilled with a sword, though she admits feeling rusty with her center of gravity. Before leaving, he advises her to fix it to improve. Maria flips out, thinking he actually believes he's won. Ronan doesn't mind, as long as she keeps her word, casually hinting at his damaged sword. She's confused until her own blade suddenly snaps into pieces, leaving her stunned. She has no idea when it happened, but Prince Charm simply tells her to have the sword's price ready. While Maria is still processing everything, Asel taps her shoulder, assuring her she did a good job. The little cutie kind of understands what Blondie's going through right now. Right then, Ronan calls Asel back, claiming he's tired. As they both walk out, Maria stays frozen in place, wondering who these guys even are. The next day, Prince Charm shows up to collect his payment from Senpai, but instead, he finds something else waiting. Turns out she's handpicked Filian theory exam workbooks and summaries she personally made to compensate for the loss of his sword. Blondie reminds him there's only a month left until the exam, insisting he needs them. Prince Charm doesn't get why she's going this far. He even threatens her, warning that if she's trying to mess with him, he won't let it slide. But Maria assures him she's taken a liking to both him and Asel. She declares this to be a service so they can all pass for free, even offering to personally teach them if possible. Because of other commitments, she has to leave now, so she tells them to study hard on their own. If they fail after she's given them all this help, she promises she won't let it slide. With that, she boards her carriage, calling out that she hopes to see them in the capital on exam day, insisting they read the book thoroughly until then. Meanwhile, Ronan realizes his weak body needs both training and studying, though luck isn't on his side. Even so, it's not a bad feeling. Life after returning home stays mostly the same, but changes gradually, like eating with Uriel until his stomach nearly bursts from all the calories, hunting monsters on the village outskirts, and working to build his stamina and adaptability. Late in the forest, surrounded by a pile of monster corpses, he tells himself to call it a day until there are no more monsters left near the village. Alongside hunting, he studies hard, which would be unthinkable for a disciplinary soldier. Still, Ronan finds memorizing the North's etiquette unnecessary, though he does his best. A month later, they finally reach Valon, the capital city, whose center houses the Empire's top educational institution in the White Tower's small city. Asel gapes at the massive Filian Academy, a masterpiece in itself. Ronan steps in, scolding her for wandering the streets like a country bumpkin and warning that they might be late for the exam. She apologizes, but her comment about him growing bigger over the past month earns her a smack on the head and a curt order to get inside. Walking in, Ronan thinks he might meet Sword Saint Schlieffen, descendant of the prestigious Grancia family, a genius, the strongest in the Empire, and roughly his age, though he doesn't care much. Just then, Asel asks if he has the Dreambird's feather that will lead them to its owner, Varen. Prince Charm packed the feather, planning to visit its owner after the test, but it suddenly points to the highest floor, startling them. Meanwhile, Varen complains that he's not cut out to be a professor and wonders if it's time to return to research. He asks Bluey if she's cheering him on, which she is. So Filian's zoology professor, Varen Fanashir, also a werewolf, keeps going, determined to repay the hero who once saved her. Varen opens the window for ventilation, wary that a visit from their hero could cause trouble for them. As he does, a creepy figure smirks at the door opening without a knock, startling both. Ronan instantly recognizes Bluey, knowing the big guy was once human. Varen's scream echoes from the top floor, and the big guy cannot tell who the strange man is or how he entered. Ronan steps through the window with Asel, grumbling about being startled and nearly deafened by the noise. Varen assumes the man is after Morpez, but Prince Charm shows Bluey's feather, sparking recognition. The big guy hesitantly asks if they are heroes. Varen feels guilty for behaving indecently in front of their heroes, and begs Ronan to forget it. Prince Charm reassures him that it is fine, but asks why he keeps bringing it up. Adding that to be specific, Varen is not entirely at fault since he climbed through the window. Asel confesses to using telekinesis because the stairs sounded annoying to Ronan. Suddenly, Ronan tells her to stay quiet. He then turns back to Varen, admitting that he did not quite imagine things would play out this way. It is far from Prince Charm's expectations that Varen is a werelion, a rare werehuman, and on top of that, a bird owner and a professor at Filian. Varen himself seems equally surprised to realize their heroes are the entrance applicants. The exam is today, and had he known they were coming, Varen might have prepared a recommendation. He does not expect it, but he adds that if Ronan fails, he might write one. Prince Charm is not concerned with Varen's possible recommendation for now. His focus is on what Bluey had popped into his hand that day. At first, Varen does not realize that Morpez placed it on him, but after a closer look, he confirms it is a Dreambird egg. Varen is unable to believe what he is seeing, so Ronan asks if it is too surprising for a bird to lay an egg. The Dreambird egg shocks Varen, but what unsettles him even more is that he has no idea what will hatch from it. Ronan points out the obvious. A bird laid it, so a bird should come out. Varen explains that the Dreambird egg is different. The Dreambird absorbs unique mana and lays an egg shaped by the environment around it. In a lava-filled area, a phoenix wrapped in flames might hatch, or a monster if it rests in a monster's nest. In many cases, the egg may not take the form of a bird at all, making its outcome unpredictable. With his expertise, Varen believes he can predict the impossible by analyzing the mana emanating from the egg, perhaps even guessing what kind of creature will hatch. He senses a myriad of chaotic mana, as if molten metal is smelting uncontrollably, yet he remains uncertain about what will hatch. Ronan, noticing how much significance Varen places on a mere egg, asks Bluey where he had been wandering before laying it, remarking that in all his history, he has never seen such a shameless bird. Varen requests that Prince Charm take care of the egg, explaining that the dream bird lays only one egg in its lifetime. The fact that Morpez did it in front of heroes suggests he felt something special. Bluey chirps happily, and Varen, wishing to honor his friend's wishes, entrusts the egg to Ronan, who is also curious about what will emerge. As they prepare to leave, Varen considers giving them something that might aid the egg's hatching. As he hands Prince Charm the scroll, it sparks Ronan's curiosity, leaving him eager to see what it contains. A while later, in the practical testing hall of Galelian Castle's main building, the waiting area for the martial arts applicants buzzes with quiet tension. A man announces that the exam for number 111 has ended, and now it is time for number 112. Ronan grows impatient with the long wait and asks Maria, seated beside him, if she feels the same. She shrugs, claiming all exams are like this. His attention drifts to her slightly uncomfortable attire, but Senpai explains that Filion is a private academy for nobles who may become valuable clients later, so she has no intention of appearing shabby. Despite that, she wishes their little Asel were here, though the magic testing hall is elsewhere. Ron silently hopes Femboy is not crying. Soon, it is Ronan's turn, number 113, and Senpai reminds him firmly to do his best, warning that if he fails, she will not let it slide. Grateful for her heartfelt support, Ron swears to return victorious. Ronan steps into the hall to face the Filion professors, each carrying an extraordinary presence, though the old man at the center draws his attention most. He is Archmage Krava Crater, headmaster of Filion. Beside him sits the swordsmanship instructor, the Grand Sword Saint Nabaros, whose overwhelming aura makes Ron tense. Not even in his past life has he felt such vigor. After a brief introduction, Krava assigns him a match against the magically engineered dummy to demonstrate his technique. When asked what he plans to show, Ronan replies that he has nothing special and that a simple fast cut will be enough for the dummy. His words spark interest when they realize he means to do it without mana. One old man mutters that there is always some oddball who treats the magical dummy like a fool, while another remarks that the applicant must be from a faraway land, unfamiliar with such things. The magical dummy, after all, is built to withstand aura, regenerate quickly, and stands as a masterpiece of precise magical engineering. The old bones gossip about the so-called genius Schlieffen, who barely left a mark on the dummy, wondering what this newcomer plans to show. As they chuckle, Krava, within earshot of their remarks, finds it offensive to speak that way with Ronan standing right there. Krava, however, wonders if this child might prove them wrong. Suddenly, he senses a vigor he has never felt from an applicant this young. Then Mr. Calm makes his move, cutting the dummy clean without using mana, catching Nabaros completely off guard. He calmly sheaths his sword, showing no interest in giving them more. The old bones find this single-cut display tricky to judge, but the headmaster is left stunned. Nabaros slams the table and charges at Mr. Cleancut as if to take his head, yet he does not even flinch. Ronan admits she startled him, but Nabaros demands to know who he is and where he learned such swordsmanship. It is clear she means business. With her blade close enough to take Ronan's head, Nabaros's murderous intent is clear, hinging on his answer to who he is. She demands to know exactly where he learned his swordsmanship. At first, Mr. Calm does not quite understand, so she rephrases, asking if he noticed her movements. He replies that she is impressive herself, having unsheathed her sword and swung it 3 times from that difficult position in an instant. Nabaros confirms it, saying that is exactly what he displayed in his so-called arrogant cut. This catches Ron off guard as she presses further, asking if he thought they would not notice such reckless swordsmanship. She even calls out his last act, deliberately slowing down the final cut in case they missed it, as if sparing them the embarrassment of missing it. Nabaros flat out calls Ronan arrogant, as if he has forgotten where he is standing. The professors are left dumbfounded, while Krava watches closely. Ronan knows it is a misunderstanding, as he had only adjusted his strength because he thought his sword might not withstand the final cut. But judging by her mood, Mr. Clearcut doubts she would believe him. Still, Nabaros lowers her blade, promising to remember him from this day forward, and vows to teach him herself. This is the last thing Ronan expected, to be handpicked by Nabaros of all people. Krava notes that she has already claimed this student, and he knows he must pay attention. He decides to end the test with a question that has no definite answer, one that will reveal the most through the way it is answered. Krava poses his final question, asking Ronan what he hopes to learn at Filion. Memories of blood and war flash through Ron's mind, and his answer comes easily. He wants to learn how to live without regrets. Krava is struck silent by the sincerity in Ronan's words, letting him leave unharmed. As he laughs to himself, he wonders how he could ever teach such a thing. One of the professors, still puzzled, asks if Ron used some clever trick to leave such an impression on both the headmaster and Nabaros. Krava admits it could be called a trick, but corrects him, saying it is talent. That is when they notice the dummy's head, cleanly severed, finally drops to the floor. Outside, Ronan's thoughts drift to the lady's sword, wondering if his past self could have defeated her. Despite all he has endured, he knows he still has far to go, yet coming to Filion feels right, driven by the memory of Commander. If he is here, the hero is sure he will learn plenty, and all that remains is the written test. He has been memorizing material for a month, so he expects it to be a piece of cake. Moments later, however, Mr. Calm has become Mr. Depressed, sulking in front of Maria and Asel, insisting he is completely doomed. Senpai cannot believe he failed to finish even half the test, and reminds him she told him to check the contents of his bag. Asel then admits that he moved Ronan's study materials while he was hyper-focused, and he completely forgot about the bag afterward. Dollface takes the blame, but Maria calls Ronan a fool, realizing he has been sulking like this ever since the test ended, and now the announcement of the results is moments away. Senpai tries to lift Ronan's spirits, reminding him that the practical test carries more weight and that his skills should make up for it. Just then, someone shouts that the list of passing applicants is up, drawing everyone's attention. The announcement begins with the magic department. Asel places 12th in practical and ties for 1st in theory. Next is the martial arts department. Senpai ranks 9th in practical and 9th in theory. The two exchange excited looks before breaking into full smiles, celebrating their success. Senpai is stunned to see Asel take the top spot in theory, even if she shares it with 2 others, while Pretty Boy is over the moon. Then she turns to Ronan, asking about his rank. Her smile fades when she sees his sour expression and hears him say his name is not on the list. The cuties are stunned by the news, but Maria mischievously pries our boy's eyes open, urging him to check again. He insists his name is not there until a fireball lands nearby. It's the entrance exam's final cannon fire for each department's salutatorian, done by the Glory Phoenix. With a flutter of wings, it shoots a fireball at him, revealing his results. Martial Arts Department salutatorian, practical 1st, and theory 5712th. The cuties scream with joy, Maria declaring she always knew he was a genius. Then it hits him. If Ronan took 1st, that means someone else lost to him. That's when he senses an ominous aura approaching and realizes, in disbelief, that this is how he meets Sword Saint Schlieffen, who confirms his 1st place finish in the practical test. Sword Saint Schlieffen approaches, the crowd buzzing at the sight of the Empire's rising star. Maria suspects he wants to speak with Ronan, while Asel feels the tension in the air. He finds him bothersome and wonders if he is still the same man who cannot stand anyone better than him with a sword. Schlieffen's intense stare strikes him as outrageously spirited. When Schlieffen claims he did not get 1st place, Ronan says he has no idea what is going on. Accused of lying, he calmly tells Schlieffen to stop picking on him without proof. At Schlieffen's demand for proof, he suddenly swings his sword at him, who blocks in under a second. The cranky saint smirks, saying the hero couldn't have reacted like that unless he was 1st, and demands to see the skills that beat him. Irritated, Ronan decides to show him. He sends a slash from afar, but Schlieffen counters it roughly. When the hero asks if that's enough, Schlieffen admits the technique explains his high score, but insists it's still not enough to surpass him. Ronan calls him crazy for being this butthurt, but the saint refuses to accept it, determined to drag out every skill the hero is hiding. He can't help thinking this guy's got serious issues, and might just be coming at him to die. The fight drags on, and Ronan already regrets ever crossing paths with this guy. In the heat of their clash, he realizes Schlieffen's about to manipulate his aura, turning the fight dangerous. With a single slash, Schlieffen unleashes the Tempest Sword, a roaring aura storm. He knows he can't withstand it, but Schlieffen shouts at him for turning his back mid-fight, asking if he plans to miss. In a split-second move, Ronan retreats and grabs Asel, holding his sword to her neck. When Schlieffen demands to know why, it only enrages him further that Ronan would use a woman as a shield, and still dare call himself a knight. Asel is horrified the Sword Saint can't tell he's a guy, while Prince Charm peers over his shoulder with a creepy grin. Ronan had expected this. Schlieffen's still the same, clinging to his knightly code even near death. Using that to his advantage, Prince Charm suddenly charges, catching Schlieffen off guard and forcing him to his knees. He quickly signals Asel and Maria to run, leaving the cranky sword confused. A bald security officer rushes in, demanding to know why a fight broke out, but Prince Charm's group has already fled. As he recognizes Schlieffen, the man asks if he's alright and who dared attack him. Schlieffen brushes it off as a fair fight and says no investigation is needed. Only then does he notice a crack in his prized mithril blade, damage done by Ronan. The skill didn't look extraordinary, yet the result was undeniable. Schlieffen vows to remember Prince Charm's name. The next day at Shemo Forest, Asel trails after Ronan, questioning if it was wise to pick a fight with Schlieffen, the heir of the Grancia ducal family, second only to the imperial line. She reminds him he even broke the man's nose. When asked what he'll do if Schlieffen retaliates, Ronan shrugs him off, saying Schlieffen's a good man, just obsessed with the sword, a principled role model who protects the weak. He predicts Schlieffen will simply call it a fair spar, or else Ronan would already be in chains. Soon after, Asel points out they've reached the Fernando Spring, just as Professor Varan mentioned. Fernando Spring is a rare place where mana from across the world gathers into a single pool called the Mana Vein. Anything nearby absorbs its power. Ordinary rocks become top-grade mana stones, weeds turn into miraculous herbs. Its value is so great that many try to monopolize it, making Professor Varan seem generous for allowing them to use it to hatch one egg. Asel, overwhelmed by the dense mana, admits it's her first time feeling such power, strong enough to amplify her magic. Noticing the egg in Ronan's pocket absorbing mana at an incredible rate, when Asel asks about the smell of blood, Ronan is certain someone arrived before them, and it's a visitor that are not welcome here. A group of masked men appear, ready to fire crimson arrows, but Prince Charm does not even flinch as he cuts them all down in an instant. From their weapons, he recognizes them as the same men from the disciplinary squad's former campsite. He recalls a red-haired boy boasting that these very arrows could blow an orc's head clean off, trying to sell them with his ridiculous pitch. Ronan found the talk boring then, especially since the boy was caught poaching, yet the redhead had the nerve to keep bragging. Now, the redhead claims that anyone who has used the arrows 100 times has succeeded in poaching and earned a place among Caliboro's bloodhounds, an elite unit whose name carries more weight than Ronan would like to admit. Ronan's irritation spikes when he realizes it is Caliboro's group again, ranked as bloodhounds. Taking matters into his own hands, he warns Asel to hide unless he wants to end up like a porcupine. The masked men gape at how easily he cut through their mana-infused arrows, while their leader orders them to surround him. Ronan shouts for them to stop and demands if they cannot recognize their own allies, boldly declaring himself the youngest bloodhound of the Damas branch, Ahayute. At first, the head of Scums scoffs at Ronan, refusing to believe a kid like him could be a bloodhound, assuming he belongs to some low-level group. Mr. Calm tells him to confirm with their branch's wolf, and warns that nothing is more pathetic than dismissing what others can do simply because he cannot. The jab riles up Scarface, who furiously threatens to cut off Ronan's limbs. Prince Charm counters that people with such violent habits always meet bad ends. Just then, another masked man points out that Ronan clearly knows the Caliboro ranking system: wolf, bloodhound, and feral dog, knowledge only insiders share. To avoid a clash with the Damas branch, he suggests confirming with their captain. At that moment, a commanding voice reminds them their orders for everyone to stand by and stay on guard. Their captain, Veum, the Demir branch's wolf, steps forward, demanding an explanation for the commotion. The head of Scums immediately blames Ronan, while the rest brace for the lecture they know is coming. Prince Charm notes that if the wolf is here, then the whole squad must be as well. Veum questions if Ronan is really a Hayute of the Damas branch, reminding him this mountain range belongs to Demir. The hotshot calmly reveals he is not a Hayute at all, leaving the intruders stunned just as he cuts them down without hesitation. Outraged, Veum shouts that Ronan chose the worst name possible, but Prince Charm only smirks, saying it was enough to pass as a poacher. He charges and cleanly decapitates the captain. The head of Scums freezes in terror, remembering Ronan's warning that his end would be ugly. Dropping his blade, he panics and even severs his own fingers in shock. Lord Ron coldly tells him to pull himself together and write down every branch location he knows, or he has no reason to stay alive. The man trembles, insisting he has nothing to write with, but Ronan points out the bloody pen already in his hand, his severed fingers dripping onto the ground. After he finishes, Lord Ron mockingly praises his effort before cutting him down as well. Dusk settles in as Asel struggles to catch her breath. He had warned her to be prepared, but the trail of animal corpses proves too much for her. When she asks if this is the work of Caliboro, Ronan coldly replies that letting those scum live would be the true crime. Asel still finds the scene gruesome, but Lord Ron reminds her they were wanted criminals who needed to be dealt with, adding that Varan would be crushed if he ever witnessed this. Just as they turn to head back, something strange interrupts them. As shivers run down her spine, Dollface urges Ronan to look ahead, and what he sees unsettles even him. Droplets of blood from the corpses rise into the air, gathering at a single point. The sight terrifies Asel, and Lord Ron prepares for battle, only for his dream egg to suddenly glow with blinding intensity. To their shock, the egg itself is absorbing the blood, leaving them both with no understanding of what they are witnessing. Ronan is certain that whatever lies inside the egg is no ordinary creature. Once it finishes draining the mana, the shell begins to crack in an instant, throwing them both off guard. Excitement surges as they prepare to witness the hatching, and Lord Ron can hardly contain his anticipation to see what treasure lies within. But before he can take a closer look, something smacks him square in the face, leaving his nose throbbing. Blinking through the sting, he tries to focus on the newborn. At first, he wonders if it might be some kind of dream bird, yet the tiny paws and claws tell a different story. Asel, wide-eyed, suggests it could be a dragon, like the ones she's only read about in books. Ronan is left stunned, questioning how Bluey could have absorbed enough mana to lay something of this magnitude. One thing is certain, the creature is undeniably cute, though its playful greeting across Lord Ron's face quickly irritated him. Yet before he can react, the winged newborn releases a burst of magic that instantly heals his nose. Asel, overjoyed, realizes the baby possesses healing abilities and looks even more fond of Prince Charm. Convinced it has more hidden powers, she eagerly suggests giving it a name. While they mull it over, the creature suddenly leaps from Ronan's shoulder, its attention fixed elsewhere. Ronan follows its gaze and spots a leftover scum, Balrouse, an errand boy from the Demir branch, bolting in fear, desperate to escape. When Balrus returned from an errand, he found his entire group slaughtered, a sea of blood pooled in one place. Confused and terrified, he fled, only to be hunted down by the little thing. Tripping, he injures his leg, panic consuming him as the newborn beast closed in. Ronan intercepts, halting Sita before it strikes. Calmly, Prince Charm reveals he'd already chosen a name. Balrus, recognizing Ronan from the past, was shaken to see the creature at his side and wondered if it belonged to him. Prince Charm asks if he was alright, surprising Balrus further by knowing his name. Though stunned by the reunion, Prince Charm teased him about poaching under the guise of a talkative Caliboro bloodhound. Balrus denied the title, insisting he was only an errand boy, but Ronan dismissed his rank. He had a task for him, and it wasn't a request. Ronan and Asel receive a high price from Maria's father in return for the spray of water. They decide to thank Professor Varen for this favor and show him Sita as well. As they reach his office, they find out that Professor Varen has gone on a long-term business trip. Ron realizes that the map he received from the Bloodhound was more than a greeting, and he had instilled so much fear in Balrus that he wouldn't attempt anything else. Later, Asel asks him what he's going to do with the money, as he has nothing major to pay off. Ron starts wondering about it. A few days later, Iriel arrives at the capital city, Valon. Ron greets her, asking if she's tired from the trip. Iriel excitedly explains how surprised she was after seeing the carriage Ron sent for her, and then asks if he's eating well, to which he reassures her. He also introduces Sita to her. Then he suggests they hurry as he will get very busy after entering the academy, so there are things he must do beforehand. Later, Ronan gives her many beautiful, expensive dresses as a gift which suit her perfectly. Iriel is surprised and says that, apart from the fact that he made a lot of money and also receives a scholarship, those gifts are still too much for her, to which Ron refuses, saying it's about time she benefits from him. Iriel gets teary, realizing that her little brother has grown up. Then Ron suggests exploring the workshop, as his sword was damaged a while ago. As he opens the door of the workshop, Schlieffen stands there, startling Ron badly. Ronan asks if he was stalking, to which Schlieffen explains that he came to order a new sword, as the previous one got defective because of him. Ron curses him as he gets annoyed and pulls out his sword to show it's equally damaged, insisting on a rematch. Schlieffen agrees, but suddenly Iriel comes between them, asking Ron not to use foul language and apologizing to Schlieffen, taking the blame herself. Schlieffen, the heir to a noble, the Grantia family, is nervous and blames his lack of discretion. Iriel excitedly grabs his hand as he's the only friend of Ron and asks him to take care of her brother. He is clearly blushing now. As compensation, he gives her his family's proof of identification badge, allowing her to go anywhere by showing it. Ronan is flabbergasted at his foolishness, as the badge is worth many villages. The next day, at Filian Academy, the headmaster, Krava Katir, conducts the entrance ceremony, greeting Class 787 and introducing himself. He praises them for their proven potential and congratulates them all for entering the academy. Just then, he teleports the entire place to a battlefield, where these freshies meet the seniors. The meeting is between the freshmen and the Year 2 seniors, where the first and second ranked freshers are appointed to one of the 4 Year 2s, and they will carry out a one-on-one spar. This is a special Filian event. In this way, they will get to know each other's abilities and weaknesses. These duels are educational, and through this, each year's representatives will get to demonstrate their first step. The headmaster announces that the freshers can choose their opponents and also decline the duel as well. Ron is irritated, as according to him, they are just hazing the freshmen. The headmaster introduces all 4 martial major arts sophomore seniors, Nazdo, Braum, Karun, and Irna, with ranks 1, 2, 4, and 3 respectively, along with Ronan and Schlieffen. They are excited to fight each other. Ron decides to show his older sister that he doesn't go around getting beaten up. As the headmaster asks them to choose their opponents, Prince Charm interrupts, confidently suggesting that he would like to duel with all 4 seniors at once. The headmaster is astonished and discusses it with Instructor Navaros to get her suggestion. She agrees with it, as according to Filian's overarching principle, the skilled one is free to do whatever. Karun and Irna get irritated as Ronan looks down on them, but Nazdo suggests they calm down, as although Ron is arrogant, Schlieffen is the skilled one, and they can't look down on him. He commands them to go all out from the start. Iriel is worried and screams at Prince Charm to be careful. Just then, the announcement commences the first match, and Nazdo pulls out his first strike on Ronan, which makes him realize that these seniors are a couple of levels higher than Maria. Ron dodges them smoothly and tries to block their attack. Their teamwork is really impressive. Suddenly, Braum shows up behind him and delivers a swift and finished move, which he dodges again. There is a follow-up attack afterward from the remaining 3, but Ronan, with his incredible speed, manages to sidestep them all and strikes back. Braum unexpectedly turns up again, on which Ron comments that he should remain considerate till the end. With that, he chops his sword into pieces, shattering it around. Braum is clearly surprised when he realizes that the stance Prince Charm used is exactly the same as Instructor Navaros's. The crowd is loud, as they didn't expect this kind of fight from a freshie. Iriel is clearly being a bully out of excitement. The seniors are in shock, but Nazdo isn't upset, as the fight was one-sided. Everyone calls Ronan unreal. Just then, Prince Charm shows his gratitude towards the seniors, and politely thanks them for accepting his challenge. He also praises their unimaginable strength and apologizes for his earlier rudeness, saying he looks forward to learning more from them. They are confused by his politeness. Then Brahm steps forward, realizing he was wrong about Ron, and instead encourages him to be confident. He praises Ronan in front of the whole academy. Later, at dinner, Ron wonders why the entrance ceremony banquet is so grand. He isn't surprised, as the institution is the best after all. Asel asks about his sister, to which Ronan explains that it took him a while to reassure her, as she is always so worried about him. He left Sita with her to get home safely. Suddenly, as he starts eating, that creeper Schleifen startles him. He appears, asking for information about Iriel, the condition of the road to her home, and many other random things related to her. Ron is annoyed to death and starts abusing him. As the two argue, Akalucia shows up. She wants to have a word with Ron out of interest. Schleifen knows it's her evil hobby and takes his leave. Asel tries to explain about her, but Ron already knows how overwhelming and powerful she is. Akalucia explains that she is here to offer something a mere criminal could never dream of. Akalucia's invitation. It's a bright purple badge. The Akalucias prioritize talent, unlike others. They debuted many talented individuals and became one of the two pillars of the empire. They offer an opportunity to become part of their family to those who display potential, and the symbol of that is this invitation. Ronan asks about it and realizes he had heard of it from a passerby. He remembers when his Grand Commander, Adeshan Akalucia, showed him the invitation and explained that he would become part of the Akalucia family like her once he had it, but only if he could pass the test given by the Patriarch, which only the skilled can complete. She also predicted he would end up receiving the invitation since he is talented. Elizabeth suggests he make a wise choice and leaves. Ronan is glad, knowing it will be helpful for him. Filian Academy prioritizes students' abilities above all. Here, the environment changes depending on one's grades, such as the dormitory system. Intermediate rank students are assigned to Nitya Hall, where everyone gets a clean room, a high-grade cafeteria, and other nice facilities. On the other hand, students in the bottom 30% are assigned to Kratir Hall, a shabby and old place where 4 students share a room, and the cafeteria, showers, and bathrooms are all shared. Lastly, the top 10% of students, including Ronan, are assigned to Nabardozer Hall, which can be described in one phrase: a huge luxury hall. As Ron enters, he sees the class registration form, where he must write down the classes he wants to take. He's heard not to choose too many classes, but they all look interesting, so he decides to take all of them. It's a common misunderstanding of a first year who has yet to experience hell. Later, the main instructor of the Empire's Swordsmanship Basics class tells Ronan that he no longer needs to attend, as he performed all the basics of the Empire's swordsmanship at the start of the class. Ronan sits alone, irritated, not just by the Empire Swordsmanship class, but also because he was kicked out of today's bowmanship and monster hunting classes. Suddenly, Instructor Navaros shows up, learns that he completed all his classes on the first day, and realizes how quickly he copied her technique. Then she asks for his sword and strikes a powerful blow into the river behind them. It only makes a huge splash, and as the sword gets damaged, she tells him that something like this can't be called a weapon. It will only wear down the user's power. Instead, she shows him her sword, which pierces through the air, making the water gather in the sky, and with that, it starts raining. This is what he is lacking. The lady shows Ronan what he is missing, and that is a personalized weapon. Warriors use sturdy, sharp steel to fight opponents. These weapons should not break easily, but even if they do, warriors can replace them. To Ronan, weapons have always been simple, replaceable tools. That changes when he sees Instructor Navaros's demonstration. Prince Charm thinks it is unbelievable. He is sure Navaros used the same sword as before, but her slash is much stronger. She explains that even one breath and a handful of strength can change a life on the battlefield. Ignoring such details can be deadly. She adds that if the hero is using mana, he needs a weapon that suits him. But since he still cannot use mana, he cannot get one yet. Ronan asks if she knew all along, and she confirms it. She still praises him for being amazing without mana, and assures him that one day he will use it. To prepare for that day, she orders him to find his perfect weapon. When Ron stays quiet, Navaros teases him for thinking too much, then invites him to her class. He asks if she is serious, and she says yes, but warns that he must bring a proper weapon, not the lump of steel he carries now. The next day, the hero stands with Asel and Maria in front of a wooden sign, telling them about Navaros's offer. They join him to search for a new weapon, starting with the place Schlieffen recommended. The directions lead to a shabby forge. Senpai and Pretty Boy doubt it would even stand if touched. Ronan is unsure, but trusting Schlieffen, he suggests they go inside. They open the door and find cobwebs on the ceiling. Inside looks even worse than outside. Still, Ron stays, trusting the Sword Saint's words. Then, a door inside opens and a hairy hand with long nails appears. Heavy footsteps follow and a huge wolf beastman steps out asking who they are. Asel panics, while Ron finds it fascinating that a wolf beastman is running a forge. The wolf grows impatient and threatens to send them away, but Ron shows the thing that Schlieffen gave and explains they came to buy a weapon. The wolf inspects them and senses mana from Asel and Maria. He yawns, saying the symbol means nothing unless the hero is truly from the Grancia family. With a grin, he adds that he might accept the request if Ronan gives him Dollface's arm, because he is hungry. Asel hides behind the hero. Ron warns the wolf that he has crossed the line. In a swift move, Ronan attacks and the strike sends the wolf backward. The hero notices that the impact felt like hitting hard armor, and he asks where the wolf got it. Ron walks toward him, saying the armor is not important, and he will just destroy it. The wolf panics and quickly admits that it was only a test to check Ronan's skill. He adds that he wanted to try his invisible armor, and that this is their verification process for strangers. Ronan calms down, and the wolf apologizes, especially to Asel, saying he does not eat people. The wolf introduces himself as Didikon, an apprentice and sometimes gatekeeper of the forge. He confirms Ronan is here for a weapon and tells them to follow him. He adds that the shabby area is only the entrance, and behind a door lies the real forge. Didikon asks if they are all good and tells them to prepare mentally. He presses a hidden button, and the gears turn as the floor slowly goes down. Didikon tells them that this is a magic stone-powered elevator. He adds that this is the fastest way to get to the forge and is the best and largest forge in the capital. Soon, an underground forge appears before them, named the Grand Carpadoki. Ron praises it, amazed that such a place exists below the capital. Didikon laughs and says that as a reward for passing the test, he will take him to the capital's best master craftsman. Ronan and his friends walk through Cappadocia, surrounded by the sound of hammers and sparks as blacksmiths make swords. The hero can hardly believe a place like this exists. Didikon explains that this forge serves only the royal family and nobles. Every blacksmith here is skilled, but the best is the elder dwarf, a master who has worked with metal for 400 years. He is stubborn, but his skills are unmatched. Without warning, Didikon kicks open a door and calls to the elder, saying he has brought a guest for him. The old dwarf, Daron, scolds him for being loud while he works. Didikon says the doorway was blocked with weapons and tells him to clean his shop. Daron complains that Didikon nags too much for someone so young, then asks if his guests are strong. Didikon says he tested Ron and is sure he is amazing. Daron looks at Ron, thinking he seems like a child, but invites him to show his swordsmanship. Ronan draws his sword, but Daron takes one glance, calls it trash, and smashes it with his hammer. Shocked and angry, Ron asks what he is doing. Daron points to swords on the floor and tells him to pick one. Any sword here, he says, is 100 times better than the hero's. Ronan hesitates, but Didikon nods for him to trust the dwarf. The hero chooses a sword and can feel the difference immediately, though he is unsure if it will change the result. He warns Daron he might destroy something, but Daron says he does not care. Ronan decides to recreate the slash he saw Navarros perform. He takes his position. Daron's eyes narrow and he recognizes the movement. The sword swings, and an explosion shakes the forge. Other blacksmiths freeze at the sound, wondering if a blast furnace exploded. Inside the shop, both Ronan and Daron stare at the damage. The hero insists he never meant to cause this much destruction. Daron asks if Ron is Navarros' student. Surprised, Ron asks if he knows her. Daron says he made her sword, a masterpiece called the Secret Sword, Urusa. Ron recalls how smooth and deadly it was. Daron admits he thought the hero was just a newbie, but now he sees rare talent. He warns that this talent makes it hard to forge a sword that suits him, and the sword he just used is already cracking from a single swing. Ron asks how to solve this. Daron says he needs the highest grade steel mixed with a special material, perhaps a byproduct of a wyvern. Ronan remembers something and pulls out an eggshell. Daron strikes it with his mithril hammer and is stunned when it does not even dent. Excited, he asks if he can use it. Ron says it is useless to him and asks if it is enough. Daron, with an excited look, says yes, and tells him to come back in 2 weeks for the best sword in the Empire. Daron tells Asel and Maria to meet the other master blacksmiths if they want weapons. Surprised, Senpai asks if he means it. Daron says he cannot send back the friends of a valuable person empty-handed. They should mention his name for special treatment. Then Daron begins hammering the eggshell with full strength, laughing at the sound. Ronan watches and thinks the old man is crazy. Far below Cappadocia, a man in white is angry at the sound of blacksmiths at work. He says that he will burn them all. A woman beside him tells him to wait. Their time has not come. She looks at the stone statues and says their plan will soon begin. They will start with the blacksmiths, then bring the empire to its knees. Staring at a giant statue sealed in crystal, she whispers that the day everything disappears in light is coming. A few days later, Ronan remembers that the best blacksmith in the empire is making his sword. His friends are getting their weapons from other blacksmiths. The prices must be high, but Ron does not care because he is not paying. He used the Grancia family symbol. The only problem is that his sword will take time to finish, so he wonders how to spend his days. Asel and Maria are busy with lessons, leaving him with no one to talk to. While walking around the school, he stops in front of the Galelian building, a place for upper-class students to train and attend lectures. He guesses Navarros teaches here too. She told him to come to her class when he had a real weapon, and though he now carries only a temporary weapon, he thinks it might be enough. While he is lost in thought, Navarros suddenly appears beside him with a fierce look. Ron freezes. Before he can speak, she grabs his ear and demands to know why he has not attended her class. She asks if he has been skipping. Ron tries to explain, but she does not listen and drags him toward the building. He cries out in pain, begging her to let go. Inside, a girl carrying a stack of files hears his voice and stops to look out the window, wondering who is making such a noise. Someone bumps into her, and when she turns to apologize, the boy, Cardin, scolds her for blocking the way. He mocks her for being slow, even though she is a teacher's assistant. He calls her a loser and orders her to prepare for the day's lessons. She agrees and hurries away. In the first sparring room, students gather as Navarros announces that Ronin will be joining their class. Some are surprised he skipped a grade. Others whisper that he does not look as strong as the rumors say. The hero notices both friendly and unfriendly faces. The teacher's assistant enters, out of breath, and apologizes for being late. Ronin hears her voice and freezes because it is familiar. Navarros tells her not to worry and asks her to introduce herself to the hero. She smiles and says she is Adashan, a second-year martial arts major and teacher's assistant. In another life, she was Adashan Akalusia, the Iron Lady, the first woman to become a Grand Commander, a leader feared and respected on the battlefield. Ronin remembers serving under her, never expecting to see such a bright smile on her face. She clearly has no memory related to regressing, and he wonders what he should do about the last wish she made before she died. As he watches, Ron notices the students bothering her with errands and orders. She works more like a servant than an assistant. Cardin approaches Ron and challenges him to a duel, saying he wants to learn from someone with such an impressive interview record. Ronin declines, saying he has something on his mind. Cardin assumes Ron is avoiding him because he has no weapon. He shouts at Adashan to fetch his spear, calling her a loser again. She hurries off and returns with a long spear. Cardin snaps at her, saying he now uses a short spear. She apologizes, explaining that he used the long one last class. He hits the spear on her head, telling her not to talk back. He insults her for begging Navarros to let her join the class and still failing at simple chores. Ronin cannot stand it any longer. He grabs Cardin's spear. Cardin stares at him in surprise, asking what he is doing. Ron says he accepts. Cardin asks what he means, and with a terrifying look he calls Cardin a loser and repeats that he accepts the duel. Cardin looks surprised by Ronin's anger. He asks if the hero accepted the duel because of Adashan. Then he smirks and says Ron must be protecting her because they are both commoners. The hero hands back the spear and tells him to defend himself if he does not want to die. Ron grabs a wooden sword and attacks with so much force that it sends Cardin backwards. Cardin cannot believe Ron has this strength without using mana. Ron says that since Cardin complained about the spear being too long, he has shortened it. The spear suddenly snaps in half. Ronin asks if Cardin likes it now. Angrily, Cardin tells Ronin to know his place and charges at him, saying Ron will not get away unharmed. Before Cardin can strike, our hero cuts the spear into small pieces and tells him to worry about himself instead. Ron then beats Cardin without holding back. He hits him in the face, making Cardin lose balance, then strikes his hip. Cardin falls to the ground and faints. Ron tells him to be thankful they are in the academy, because outside, he would be dead. The other students are frozen in shock. Cardin is one of the strongest third-year students, yet he lost completely. Ronin turns to the others with a fierce look that makes the air feel cold. He points at a girl who had been asking for a towel and tells her to handle it herself instead of bothering others. He walks toward her, asking if the assistant teacher is her servant. The girl screams, and our hero tells her to come closer so he can beat her too. Adashan quickly steps in front of him. She says she does not understand why he is doing this and insists she is fine. Ron tells her to move. He says he cannot stand seeing her treated badly, especially by people like them. He says no one in the Empire has the right to look down on her or abuse her. He pushes her aside and says he will beat every student in the class. A firm voice orders him to stop. Navarros' presence fills the training hall like a heavy wave. She says she will not punish him for fighting Cardin, but if he continues, she will not forgive him. She tells him to drop his sword and walk away. Ron suddenly feels his body freeze. When he looks back, he sees Navarros, with a huge snake ready to eat him. This is the manner of the Sword Saint. She says what he is about to do is not a duel, and as the class instructor, she will not allow it. Ronin accuses her of knowing what Adashan goes through and doing nothing. Navarros says it is not his concern and warns him again. Ron grips his sword and says it does not matter if she is the Sword Saint. He will not change his mind. Navarros closes her eyes sadly and says there is no choice. The snake heads towards him. A loud sound fills Ronin's ears and darkness covers his sight. A memory appears. In another life, Adashan is the Grand Commander. Ron once asked the Iron Lady why she volunteered to take the position of Grand Commander when everyone else refused. She told him that someday he would understand that there are things you cannot give to others because they are your fate. He always wondered what burden she carried. In her last moments, she told him she was sorry for giving that burden to him and asked him not to forgive her. Ron wakes up shouting. He looks around and sees that he is lying in bed. Someone asks if he had a nightmare. He turns his head and freezes. It is Adashan. Ronin wakes up and calls Adashan Grand Commander. She is surprised and asks what he means. He laughs, says it was a mistake, and tells her not to worry. But this Iron Rose is confused. Ron asks if he is in the infirmary. She confirms it. Navaros told her to bring him and said she would correct his behavior in supplementary classes. Ronin knows he is in trouble and expects Navaros to be angry. Adashan asks if Ron was angry when he fought earlier because of her. He looks away and says he fought because he is a gentleman who values manners. She knows he is lying and calls him a bad liar. She asks him not to hate Carden and the other students too much, saying she understands why they treat her badly. Ronin is shocked and angry. He says she did nothing wrong except work hard as a teaching assistant and asks why she became one. Adashan is surprised. Ron says he thinks Navaros lets students misbehave because they are young, but he will never accept a teacher ignoring bad behavior. He asks if Adashan is angry at Navaros. She smiles and says no, because she asked Navaros to overlook the students' treatment of her. Ron is shocked and thinks she's joking. Iron Rose explains she enjoys privileges she does not deserve. To attend Navaros's class, one must be a sword expert, but she took a year off and struggles to control her mana. Ron is surprised that someone so powerful once feels powerless. Adashan says she asked Navaros to ignore the bad behavior so she wouldn't burden her. She accepts humiliation as the price for her privileges. She thanks Ronin and admits she thought she was used to small troubles, but today was painful. Ron asks if she endures this to become Grand Commander. She is surprised that he knows her goal. Smiling, she says her dream is to be the Empire's Grand Commander. Even if it sounds silly for someone not yet a sword expert, she will not give up. She is confident in military science and strength, and works hard. Realizing it is time for class, Adashan tells Ron to rest before going back. Ronin thanks her for watching over him. She smiles and leaves. Later, our hero remembers her last words as Grand Commander, to tell her to stop chasing the dream and try tailoring instead, as she never tried it. Ronin feels torn, unsure how to tell her to give up. A few days later, on a weekend, our hero, Asel and Maria, go to the Grand Cappadocia Forge because Daron wants to see them. When they arrive, no one is there. Ronin is angry because Daron sent a late-night letter asking them to come and get his masterpiece. While looking around, Ron steps on a helmet and kicks it, complaining that the forge is dirty and customers are treated badly here. Senpai wonders why Ron is so sensitive these days. Femboy said that he has no idea. Ron insists they go inside. Maria asks if he is even allowed. Ron reminds her that Daron invited them and tells her to follow. They enter an elevator and Ronin presses a secret button. Going down, he complains that Daron doesn't know the basics of customer service. Deeper down, Ron sees the forge on fire and people unconscious. Asel points out a rock giant chasing blacksmiths. Ronin wonders why rock giants are there. Asel asks what to do. Ron grabs Pretty Boy, carries him up and places his leg on the elevator rails, ready to jump. Femboy is confused. Ronin tells Maria to get help and jumps down. He tells Asel to use telekinesis. Dollface uses a skill called the Invisible Hand to soften their fall. Blacksmiths are about to be crushed by the giant. Ron jumps over and destroys it. Landing, he complains that so many problems come his way in just a few days, and his head already hurts. Ronin glares at the rock giants, declaring that they're done for, and stands still with his back facing the giant. The giant throws a punch, but Ron suddenly starts sprinting in the opposite direction, confusing the giant. Our hero quickly draws his sword and slashes the giant into many rock pieces. The blacksmiths stare at the scene as one of them asks if that is Daron's guest who visited previously. The other one silently watches Ron slashing the giant and says that such a young child is killing the rock giants in one go. After a while, Ron stands on the fallen giant and calls out to the blacksmiths, demanding they explain the situation to him. Later, he expresses his shock when the blacksmiths tell him about how dozens of rock giants suddenly appeared in groups. One of the blacksmiths tells him that they don't know the cause of it either. The other explains that the giants appeared somewhere underground, started destroying everything, and killed many blacksmiths. It even grabbed several blacksmiths, including Daron, and returned to where it came from. They tell him Didikon chased after them, but he isn't good at fighting, and at this rate, they'll all become food. Ronin nods and says he understands, asking if there are any more giants left. The blacksmith tells him he just killed the last one. Ron tells Asel that until Maria arrives with reinforcements, she should look for anyone injured and heal them. If she does it with Sita, she should be able to conduct first aid without any issues. Pretty Boy asks what about him, to which Ron replies that he's going to save those who were taken away and also needs something from Sir Daron. Meanwhile, Daron kneels down and calls out to Didikon, thanking him for putting his life on the line and coming here, but tells him there's no need for him to be here too, so he should hurry up and go. He also mentions his armor, that if it's his invisible armor, it will endure. Didikon yells at him to shut up, saying that there's already a lot going on right now, so stop saying things that tire him out and instead suggests he swing that sword. Daron refuses, saying that this sword is his best masterpiece and he can't taint it with his stupid swordsmanship. Didikon replies that this is not the time to be doing that. Just then, the rock giant roars and raises its hand to punch, but Daron is pushed back by the sewer's effect. He opens his eyes to see Didakon stopping the punch. Didakon thinks that even the defense enchantment cast on his armor is gone. If he knew this is how he was going to die, he would have made everything he wanted to. Suddenly, Ron shows up, slashing the giant into pieces, and tells Didakon to leave his back to him and take a break. Didakon asks how our hero got here when there should have been many giants along the way. Ronan turns around and says he killed them all, saving the other blacksmiths. Didakon is in disbelief. Ron then asks Daron to give him the sword since he can't use it anymore. When Daron looks at him in confusion, Ron asks if it's not his sword that he called a masterpiece. Daron quickly gives him the sword, and Ronan charges toward the rock giants, killing them in microseconds. The impact leaves even Ron in shock as he asks what the sword actually is. Daron tells him the sword's name is La Mancha, named after his favorite daydreamer. He explains that the sword is so light he can barely feel its weight, yet it's sturdier than mithril and can withstand all swordsmanship. He didn't even cast any enchantments on it, but it possesses a trait where it restores any damage taken by absorbing blood. Ronan wonders if that's because it's made out of Sita's eggshell and praises Daron. Then Daron suggests they should get out of there, and since they are the only ones left, there won't be anyone else to save. Ron agrees and asks Didakon to take Daron and leave while he checks something out. He suspects that there is a rat hiding here, a very big one. Didakon asks what rat Ronan is talking about, to which our hero explains that something seems off. These giants aren't known for mobbing. If someone doesn't provoke them first, they're usually quite well behaved. Also, on the back of their heads he found suspicious marks, a magic circle he's never seen before. He asks Daron if he recognizes the pattern. Daron examines it, saying he isn't sure because he's not well versed in this area, but he feels the reverberation of the mana is quite crafty and concludes that this is the reason why the rock giants have gone wild. He wonders who would do such a thing, to which Ron adds that it's something they need to find out. Ron makes his way through the tunnels and caves, wondering if he's right or wrong, but the deeper he goes, the more certain he becomes. Among the rock giants' footprints, there are other prints, twice the size of a human, and a defense system type mana stone is also present. This confirms to him that someone definitely planned this. He abruptly stops when he hears voices and hides behind a wall. As he peeks to find out who they are, he sees two people, Yudin and Cyrilla, whispering to each other with their backs facing him. Both are wearing white cloaks and facing a golden rock giant. Ronan concludes that they are behind this. He glances at the rock giant and realizes the ones he fought earlier were mere children compared to this one. He sees that it's still sealed, but if it begins to move, it could cause problems. Yudin asks Cyrilla if she thinks there's an intruder, saying he's sure because the brainwashing link he cast on the rock giant has disconnected. Cyrilla replies that she believes it was done by a third party. Yudin mocks the Imperial bastards, saying they acted fast for once. He asks what they should do, since they have no rock giants left and still can't operate the golden one. With an evil laugh, he asks if he should kill them all, but Cyrilla says it's enough. She explains they've already destroyed most of the surrounding facilities, which will greatly impact the Empire's weapons manufacturers. She adds that if their identities are revealed, that person won't stay still, so it's better to retreat for now. Yudin asks if he should destroy the golden one, saying that the one snooping around smells like Smith's sulfur, and it's getting on his nerves. Suddenly, flames follow Ron as he tries to dodge them. He wonders about Yudon, and seeing how quickly and powerfully the magic was cast, realizes this guy isn't average. Yudin asks Ronan how he got here, since that defense system wasn't easy to break through. But that's what Ron wants to know, who they are and why they're meeting at this place in such an extreme way, even if they were eager to be together. Yudin jokingly asks Cyrilla if he should kill the kid, to which she disagrees, but Yudin suggests they have some fun, saying there isn't much time left for the Emperor to be buried in starlight. Ron, burning with anger, questions what he means. Yudin wonders about his sudden mood shift. Ron demands they come with him, saying he has a lot to ask. Yudin sarcastically asks if he's planning to capture them. Just as Yudin is about to strike, Ron swiftly slices his hand without him even noticing. Yudin drops to his knees as Cyrilla freezes, stunned by the situation. Ron grabs her by the neck and orders her to answer his questions obediently if she doesn't want to end up like him, leaving Cyrilla out of breath. Suddenly, Cyrilla ends up summoning her mana shield, but Ron effortlessly cuts through it, leaving her in shock, and pierces his sword through her. He finds out that she is a half-elf who is associated with Yudin. Just then, an explosion echoes throughout the basement, and Yudin is standing firm in front of Ron, warning him to stay away from Cyrilla. But Ron confidently claims that it's over for them, and offers him a choice. Either listen obediently, or he'll let that elf have a taste of death. Purposefully, Yudin chooses to listen, but suddenly Cyrilla smiles, making Ron wonder why she is suddenly smiling. Seconds later, the giant becomes active again and strikes a powerful blow toward Ron. He freezes for a moment, then tries to block the attack but fails and ends up hurting himself. Yudin runs to Cyrilla, asking if she is fine. Cirilla reassures him, thanking him for diverting Ronan's attention, or else she wouldn't have been able to use her magic to activate the giant. She also mentions that the giant is heavily damaged, so she was only able to activate its arm. Yuden asks her to go to the church and report the situation while he puts an end to this. Cirilla, out of concern, asks him to be careful and warns him about Ron, saying he is a monster in the face of a child. Yuden agrees and decides to kill him because if he lets Ronan live, he will become a huge threat to them. Just as Yudon is thinking this, Ron slices him down into pieces before he can even react. Cirilla stands stunned, wondering how he can do that when he's so badly injured. Her body isn't responding the way she wants it to. She is mad, but since she isn't sure they can win, reporting the situation to the church is her first priority. Cirilla warns Ron that she will find out everything about him and take everything away from him, his family, loved ones, and friends. Ron realizes he can't let her escape his grasp, as he barely managed to find a clue about the situation, or else there will be no difference between this and his past. Ronan screams at her to stop over and over. Just then, Instructor Navarose shows up, paralyzing Cirilla in place, and states that she has a lot of questions. But first, she wants to confirm whether it was Cirilla who hurt her disciple, Ronan. She burns with anger, her aura terrifying. Our hero is relieved to see her. She is also glad to see Ron and find out that he is fine. Cirilla is shivering with fear as Navarose's aura takes the form of a snake and paralyzes her whole body. She almost recognizes her. Navarose walks toward her and grabs her face, adding that she has done a few things that shouldn't have been done, but it makes her even more furious that Cirilla hurt her disciple. She tells her to see the future before her eyes. Her stars begin to burn. As the stars burn, Cirilla collapses to the ground. Navarose suggests reporting the situation to the principal after treating Ronan's wounds. Just then, Ron asks her if the future she mentioned is Laudelin Prison. It's the prison used to interrogate criminals who have gone against the Empire to make any sort of confession. Ron requests that he be allowed to observe their interrogation, just once. He insists, as it is really important to him. Meanwhile, Acel and Maria ensure every injured person receives treatment. After they're done, Femboy grows concerned about Ronan and hopes he comes back soon. Just then, Ron shows up and says he received a brief summary on his way about their hard work. Senpai brought more backup forces, while Pretty Boy and Sita saved half of the craftsmen who were buried. But there is still something for which Ron must leave. A few hours later, at the secret rendezvous point for Laudelan's convoy, Navarose and Ron stand on Grengno Forest Cliff, with Cirilla and Yuden laying there, waiting for Laudelan's escort to arrive. As the escorts reach the spot, they mention that they received a call from the Empire to escort the criminals. Navarose hands over Cirilla and Yudon to them, warning that Yudon has an incredible regenerating ability. They acknowledge the warning, adding that this kind of fun object has come to them for the first time, and take their leave. They assure her that they will contact her as soon as the interrogation is over. As they leave, Navarose informs Ron that 1 week will be enough time for them to open their mouths, and she will let him know once she receives the call. Afterwards, time moves quickly. With the support of the Empire, the restoration of Grand Carpadoki proceeds rapidly, and Ron returns to the Empire, spending his time taking supplementary lessons from the instructor. A few days later, at Laudelin Prison, while interrogating a criminal, the interrogator mentions a guest will be visiting him soon. Instructor Navarose and Ron arrive at Laudelin Prison. Interrogator Karaka, in charge of the new criminals, receives them and suggests they see the prisoners first. Ronan finds it hard to believe that this nice, old-looking man is an interrogator, but Navarose insists not to judge a book by its cover, as he will soon understand why this man is called the worst nightmare. On the way, Karaka gives them a summary of the interrogation. Their organization is called Nebula Clasier. Navarose asks if this is a criminal organization like Caliboro, to which Karaka agrees, adding that they are more dangerous. From the Great Fire that destroyed the Nalanda Granary to the explosion at the Magic Engineering Research Facility, Ottoman, it has been confirmed that they were responsible. Ronan wonders why he never heard of them in his past life. Then he asks Karaka if they mentioned anything about Starlight or the star's advent, which he heard during the capture. Karaka, now irritated and feeling ashamed for not having the full information, decides to show the criminals his full sincerity. As the door opens, Ron glances at Cirilla and Yudon, wondering if they are the same people he met before, because they have been brutally interrogated and are barely recognizable. Karaka, in his creepy form, adds that Yudon has quite an impressive dark regeneration ability, so he suggests burning people like him, piercing a burning arrow through him, and cutting his limbs with full effort. Yudon screams in severe pain. Karaka makes him suffer even more, asking why he hasn't revealed everything. Yudon claims he has already told them everything, but Karaka decides to end the conversation with Yudon and turns to Cirilla, as she has no regenerative abilities, so it won't be hard to get information from her, especially since she knows that if he tortures her anymore, she will die. Cirilla, her voice trembling, begs him to kill her. Just then, Ron realizes that even in the disciplinary squad, he hasn't seen this kind of violence. but he wonders how Yuden can still hide something in this condition when their identities have already been revealed. Suddenly, it hits him. He informs Navaros that it might be forbidden cursed magic that's preventing the information from being disclosed, as this method was used on soldiers to protect secrets. As Karaka hears this, he brings out a creepy, horrible-looking monster, Cursed Eye, that devours curses placed on criminals who are unable to speak due to magic. He starts with Yudon and lets the eye monster devour his head. As the curse breaks, he asks Yuden about the star's advent. Yuden says it is an eternal entity, the only grace that will save the lowly beings of Earth. The small lights that are waiting for the star's advent begin beyond the skies. They work to ensure nothing interrupts their long-cherished wish. Cyrilla asks him to stop, but he doesn't. Karaka asks what it is that he says will fall from the sky. "It's the star's children," he replies. As Ronan hears this, he realizes that Yuden is talking about Ahayute. Ronan fails to hold himself back after hearing the mention of the children of the stars and steps forward toward Eduan. He then demands Eduan confirm if he is referring to Ahayute by the children of the stars. Eduan is surprised as he looks up at Ronan upon hearing him say the word Ahayute. He questions our hero about it. However, blood starts to drip from his eyes and mouth, and his face begins to disfigure as if it's about to burst. Before the situation can escalate, Karaka pulls Prince Charm back and creates a magical shield between them and Eduan. Suddenly, a great amount of light begins to emit from Eduan's face before it explodes completely. Later, Karaka remarks that he didn't expect it, as such a thing happened even though the cursed eye had absorbed the curse. Looking at the fuming mess of Eduan's body lying on the floor now, Ronan inquires in horror if this is a usual occurrence. Karaka refuses, revealing that it rarely worsens to this point, and concludes that the curse might have been cast in two parts. The first part must be to ensure the person does not reveal anything about the star's advent to anyone outside their organization. The second part activates when words related to the star's advent are mentioned, causing the curse to explode. He then places his hand on Ronan's shoulder, which startles him, and states that if he's right, then it must be some kind of secret information within Nebula Clasier. Out of curiosity, he then inquires about Ron's awareness of such confidential information, claiming that he must know something as the interrogator of this case. Ronan reveals that there isn't much to tell, except that he happened to hear it by coincidence. His statement confuses Karaka, so he questions what Prince Charm means by coincidence. Thus, Ron reminds him how he was the first person to find them in Grand Carpadoki. That's when he picked something up while eavesdropping on them. To further explain, Ron reveals that he didn't consider the piece of information to be significant until today, when he changed his mind and began thinking that the word Ahayute might be important. Once he has explained himself, he removes Karaka's hand from his shoulder and apologizes for interfering due to his sudden excitement. Karaka believes Ronan is hiding the truth, but despite his conviction, he is compelled to step back when Navaros unsheathes her sword and places it at Karaka's neck. She demands he stop and angrily asks if he dares question her disciple, Ron, in front of her. Scared by her move, Karaka immediately backs off, and calling her an unprecedented sword saint, claims he was merely double-checking since it's always better to be cautious. Once all is settled, Karaka puts the cursed eye over his shoulder, exclaiming over the loss of it, as they're highly difficult to kill, unlike most fantastical monsters. Seeing it get compared to fantastical monsters, Ronan surprisingly asks if a cursed eye is that powerful. Karaka affirms and states that despite their capabilities, they look cute if observed closely. Turning to look over his shoulder, Karaka asks Prince Charm if he wants to touch the cursed eye but suddenly stops mid-sentence. His eyes widen in surprise when he notices that the cursed eye has changed. Trying to think if it absorbed a curse from someone, he considers how it didn't even go near Cyrilla. That's when he realizes it could have absorbed a possible curse from Ron when he grabbed Ronan's shoulder earlier while using his mana shield. Karaka apologizes to Prince Charm for his rudeness before placing the cursed eye on the back of Ron's hand, and it begins to croak and puff up until it explodes. The sudden explosion of the cursed eye confuses them. Karaka calms Ron down and informs him that he's cursed, before asking if he's ever faced difficulty running or holding objects made of steel. This makes Ronan go quiet, which indicates that he has indeed faced such circumstances. Therefore, Karaka lets him know that he won't force him if he wants to hide it. However, he informs Ron that judging from the power of the curse, it contains an enormous amount of ill intent from the one who cast it on him. Karaka sees Ronan and Navaros off and thanks them for their hard work. Further, he promises to inform them about Cyrilla's interrogation once he has lifted this strong curse. When he notices the look on Ron's face, Karaka asks about the troubled look, to which Ronan admits it's due to the revelation of being cursed. Acknowledging his concern, Karaka advises him not to worry too much since he is a Filian student. It makes Ronan confused. To clear the confusion, Karaka informs that it looks like the curse has resided within Prince Charm's body for a long time, so he recommends Ronan visit Professor Maya's secret, because he's the only mage on the continent who knows the most about all curses. On their way back, Ronan continues to rub his right eye endlessly, wondering what's wrong with him. After a while, when Navaros also gets irritated by his restlessness, she asks him if it's really that itchy for him to not stop. Ron affirms before telling her that he thinks it's been like that ever since he touched the cursed eye. So she explains that it's one of the most common symptoms that appear when a curse is getting weaker. Thus, he doesn't need to worry. Ronan thinks about how Navaros isn't just skilled, but also a nice person, and gets suspicious about her since he never heard about her in his past life. Thus, he wonders if Nebula Clazier did something. The next day, Ron meets Adashan in the Sherry Forest, a training area for magic students. Iron Rose cheerfully greets him and welcomes him, happy to finally meet him after the midterm exams. She expresses her joy that they've gotten to meet because of their instructor, and then proceeds to ask him about his well-being. After seeing her, Ron remembers that he was supposed to think about something to do regarding the Grand Commander matter, and decides to laugh off her current statements. Thus, when he greets her cheerfully in return, she informs him that all the guys who were wary of Cardin have become much friendlier since that day. However, she adds that she's a bit concerned that Cardin gets scared whenever he sees her. Adashan notices the worried look on his face, and brings up how she heard from the instructor about having to undo Ronan's curse. He confirms the news and tells her that he's come here because he has to meet Professor Sekret. However, he seems like a unique man to be found here. After hearing Ronan's comment, the lady confirms that Professor Sekret and his office are indeed unique, which is why non-magic students don't come here. She reveals that she asked a younger magic student for guidance, and turns around to see if she's arrived yet. Suddenly, the junior student Eli appears in front of Adashan and hugs her happily. While the two of them greet each other, Prince Charm takes a look at her and remembers that she's the same girl, Akalusha, who was yapping about the wolf and sheep. Once the two of them are done with the meet and greet, Eli asks the Iron Lady what she wanted to meet Professor Sekret for. Before she can answer, she looks at Ron, and her eyes widen in surprise. Thus, he claims that he was the one who asked for help. He then greets her by calling her Elizabeth, and teases her about whether he should call her Eli. Eli screams in panic after seeing him there, but she eventually calms down and leads them to Professor Sekret's office. Ronan teases her and asks if she brought him to this creepy place to bury him alive for seeing something he shouldn't have, but she yells at him for teasing her and demands that he not call her Eli. As Elizabeth leads Ron to the office, Ronan finds it strange to know that she's friends with the Grand Commander. This makes his suspicion turn into belief that she was the original Akalusia, and he wonders how they met. The two of them walk ahead, and once Elizabeth has opened the door to the office, they see an old woman sitting on a rocking chair. Prince Charm asks Eli if she's Professor Sekret, but she tells him not to get ahead of himself because there's another step. She then leads him right in front of the old lady and draws her hand forward before telling him to stay still no matter what happens. After saying some words, she calls out something to open and draws back her hand. With no patience, Ronan remarks that nothing has changed, until the old woman's mouth opens and keeps on getting bigger. When it's big enough for them to walk inside, it stops growing, but Prince Charm's astonishment grows instead. Eli advises him not to move, and they get teleported to another place. After arriving there, she informs him that this is Professor Sekret's real office, and says another spell. Ronan looks around the place and can't believe they just entered through such a strange entrance. While Ron is busy calling the place weird, Professor Sekret arrives and immediately recognizes him as the one sent by Navaros. She approaches Ronan, and with the help of her fingers, she opens his eyes and claims that she can feel something determined within him. After taking a look, the continent's best curse artist, Maya Sekret, calls Ron an interesting child before passing a smile to him. Professor Sekret touches Ronan's eye and reads him. The hero is shocked and wonders if this child is really the professor. She notices his reaction and smiles kindly. She tells him not to be surprised and says she has her reasons for looking this way. She reveals she is already 80 years old. Ronan is shocked again and wants to ask how she looks so young, but she cuts him off and tells him to focus on why he came. She snaps her fingers. Ribbons with ancient letters appear in the air. She says removing the curses on Ron is more important. Ronan looks around, confused by the strange letters. The professor studies them and says she didn't expect this many curses. Some of them are very old and dangerous. Even the skillful ones cannot touch these. Ron asks if the curses can be removed. The professor says yes. Even with so many curses, she can handle them. A magic circle appears below the hero. She says she came ready for this. She tells Ronan that she will send him into a world inside his mind, where the curses will appear. The hero just needs to find the root of the curse and destroy it. Ron repeats what she says and asks how he will know which one is the root. The professor says he will feel it when he sees it. Then she releases blue mana from her hand. She touches Ronan's forehead and wishes him luck. Her finger glows, and the hero suddenly falls into a strange space. A few seconds later, his surroundings form. He is now inside his memories. Ronan looks around and sees a familiar place. It is his old house, the one where he lived with his sister Iril. He wonders if the root of the curse is inside. Then someone with silver hair runs past him. He hears a familiar voice. It is young Iril. Iril is looking at a baby. She asks why Ron is always sleeping and if he is sick. Their mother tells her that babies need sleep to grow. She says that if Ron gets sick, Iril must take care of him because she is the big sister now. Iril promises to protect him forever. Ronan realizes this is when he was just born, and is surprised by how cute and innocent he looked. Suddenly the mood changes. A man with a dark presence enters the room. Ron feels heavy and cannot move. The man walks in and is greeted by Iril and their mother. Ronan's mother says she didn't expect him so soon. The man says something, but Ron cannot hear it. The mother points to Ron in the cradle and smiles. She is about to say Ron looks like him, but then the man's hand glows dark. He casts a spell on her. She becomes dizzy and falls unconscious. Iril is confused and asks what happened. The man casts the same spell at her and she also faints. Ronan panics and shouts Iril's name. He forgets that this is a memory and tries to stop the man, but something blocks him. The same ribbons appear on the man's hand as he walks toward Ronan and he recognizes them. A bright light flashes. The hero blocks his eyes and realizes this man is the root of the curse he must destroy. The professor was right. Outside the memory realm, Professor Secret's hands tremble. Her mana is almost gone, even though she came prepared. She says Ron's curse is too strong. Elizabeth asks how many curses are in Ronan, and the professor says around 10. Elizabeth stutters and says no wonder the professor's mana is draining. Removing that many curses is too much. But Secret, with a serious look, says no. The curse she is facing right now is just one. In his memories, Ronan looks at the dark, shadowy person staring at his unconscious mother and sister. Then the man leans down towards a child and whispers something. As the man passes him by, the confinement lifts, and the hero runs towards his mother and sister to check on them, but they just fall asleep. He calms himself and decides to kill that man. He runs in the man's direction, but when he sees him standing quietly, waiting for him, he realizes the man must want something from him. Burning with anger, Ron takes out his sword and rushes to finish him off, as he had laid a finger on his family. The man is ready to strike back and block Ronan's attack, overpowering him. It shocks the hero how a mere curse can be so effective against his sword. He tries to move again, but the man cuts him in many places, making Ronan scream and kneel on the floor. Ron is in disbelief and wonders why his sword can't reach him, then senses the man walking away. He gets curious whether the man is going to leave without doing anything to him. He stands up, thinking he can't let this happen because he still has something to ask him. He gets up, holding his wounds, and yells that this isn't over. He asks why he did that. His family's tones, expressions, and actions were affectionate, and they wouldn't act that way with just anyone, so that must mean he is him. Ron asks why he did that, why he made his mom and Iril sad, even placed a curse on him, but still has no excuse or explanation, and yet he still calls himself their father. But the man doesn't say a word, and Ronan beheads him, saying that it's okay if he doesn't want to talk. He will just find out himself, so he should get out of his body. Just then, the hero wakes up with a jolt, holding his throbbing head, and finds himself in separatio. Professor Secret, behind him, asks Ron if he feels fine. Ronan turns around as he feels dizzy. He looks up, and as the view gets clearer, he recognizes Professor Secret. The professor is amused that the hero recognizes him so clearly. He praises his good senses. Just then, Ronan asks him why he looks aged. The professor tells him to stop thinking about it and instead asks if he feels a bit different. Ron says that from the moment they met, he sensed that she was not an ordinary person, but now he feels like his initial thoughts were just understatements. Later, Professor Secret explains that the curse inside the hero used all his memories, even ones he had never known of, to create the background. She asks the hero if he really thinks that the curse on him was placed by his father. Ron agrees. He tells the professor that he is sure about it because, at the very least, he has heard things from his mother and sister. He angrily says that it happened when his father messed up his family. He felt a sadness inside him that must be the reason he got so riled up too. Then the professor asks him if he also doesn't remember any memories of his parents. He says that it's like they are still in his head, but he can't seem to recall them, like they were cut off. Professor Secret concludes that not only his mana, but his existence had vanished too. He tells Ronan that it must be his father behind all those memories being gone. When the professor tells him that the reason he was able to use mana before destroying the curse is because he recovered his lost sense, Ron looks at his hands and realizes that the meaning behind the shiny strands around his hand is the mana they hide. The professor tells him that, just like other students, one day he might be able to use mana as well. That is, if he removes 2 of the curses from the 9 curses he has on himself. Then she tells him to go, as the sun has started to rise. Ronan suddenly notices that Secret just got younger. He casually comments if she changes forms based on the days. She suggests he stay collected, as he must be burdened by all this. He agrees and decides to rely on the professor in the future as well. Meanwhile, somewhere else at the same time, in the Grand Carpadocus basement, the head of the Grancia Duke family, Joseph Sinovan de Grancia, stands there admiring a huge rock monster. Upon the arrival of Dolan, the Duke asks him about the recovery efforts. Dolan informs him that they're going smoothly and that things will get back to normal. Additionally, he says that he found who the active student was here and suggests the Duke meet the student in person. Then the Duke orders Dolan to vacate the basement when the golden statue suddenly attacks him. The Duke grabs his sword and effortlessly slices it into pieces as he is in a hurry to meet the young hero of Filion. The next morning at the dormitory, Ronan wakes up to the sound of his door banging. As he gets to the door, Dolan stands there. The hero gets a bit rude to him. From behind, the Duke comes closer and asks Ronan respectfully if they can have a chat with him. When Ronan finds out that he is Duke Grantia, he is shocked. They show him the scabbard which was furnished just the day before. When he sees this, he asks why they bring such a gracious thing to him. The Duke wanted to show his gratitude for the family, and says that his own sword, Pale Road, was made by Master Daron, who insisted on giving that sword to Ronan. He also offers him the Grantia's medallion, which leaves Ron astonished. With the worth of this medallion, Ronan could buy 3 villages. The Duke tells him that by now, the 2 students who assisted him, Asel and Maria, can also receive their prizes along with the medal. Later, the Duke asks him about the person behind this incident. Ron suddenly senses something and tells him that he doesn't know how much he knows about all this, but those rats are much more than he thinks they are. When he says this, Ronan senses strange energy from Dolan and realizes that it is familiar, like when he fought those disgusting things. When the Duke asks him why he stopped talking suddenly, Ron wonders why only he can see the mana emitting from Dolan, but not the Duke. He decides to provoke Dolan and asks the Duke if he knows about the star's advent, and informs him about the organization Nebula Classier. Dolan is clearly irritated. The Duke is in disbelief and asks if he really gathered the information on his own, to which the hero confirms. Later, the Duke takes his leave, suggesting he will find out the rest himself. Ronan offers that he will send more info about the Nebula Classier and the star's advent to him at night. It will be interesting, especially the part about a Hayute. Dolan's eyes widen as he hears this. Later that night, when Ronan is sleeping peacefully, Dolan attacks him but suddenly finds the bed empty. Suddenly, Ron stands behind him and mentions that he already predicted he would come, so he brought a guest for him as well, young Master Schlieffen. The Master orders Dolan to explain himself. Earlier that evening, Ronan went to invite Schlieffen to his place. He told him that tonight he would be attacked by Dolan. At first, he denied it, but upon insisting, Schlieffen agreed. Ron also adds that he will be getting rid of one of the rats who infiltrated his family. Back there, Dolan aims his sword at Schlieffen. Ron feels his body getting heavier due to Dolan's strong mana. As Dolan charges forward, Ronan tries to block his attack but ends up getting hit. Dolan claims that Ron ruined their friendship. When Schlieffen asks why Dolan is betraying them, he clarifies that he was never a Grantia knight to begin with, so he is not betraying anyone. Schlieffen's face goes blank, and he leaves him on his own. Just then, Ronan blocks Dolan, leaving him shocked, and mocks Schlieffen, saying that he made things quite annoying for him. But who knows that the young master will shift to his true form and charge toward Dolan, saying that it will be a bloodbath in Grantia for a while. He endures all of Dolan's mana with full force through his own mana. Dolan wonders if he was hiding his true powers, as he seems stronger within a very short period of time. Just then, Ron again strikes him, which he dodges smoothly. The noise is getting loud, and Dolan realizes that professors are going to come here. He thinks to himself that it was a bad idea to come alone when he knew it was going to be against the 2 of them. He wants to retreat and hide until he gets the opportunity to kill. Suddenly, the young master flies into the air with his sharp sword, saying that unlike his father, he can't use the Tempest sword easily. However, no one would be harmed if he were to use the Tempest sword, except Dolan, who is a traitor. He uses the Grantia family's generational secret sword technique and hits him. It creates a large smoke tornado. When Dolan speaks slowly, his star fades. He goes into the ground. The young master puts the sword back, saying that from this day on, no one in the family will recall Dolan's name, as he wasn't even a Grantia after all. Ron smiles and tells Schlieffen that he seems pissed, having dealt with it so flashily. He wonders how they'll be able to hand Dolan over to Lodolan since he's in a dead state. But according to Schlieffen, he didn't harm him that much, though he's not entirely sure. Just then, he tells Ronan that he needs to inform the household as soon as possible. Suggesting they need to track down the traitor, he takes off running, leaving the rest to the hero, confident things will be fine with him. Ronan, irritated, shouts in anger that Schlieffen can't just leave everything to him after destroying it, and he starts cursing him. Just then, the headmaster shows up from behind, asking about the situation, along with Instructor Navarros, wearing cute and catchy pajamas that catch the hero's attention. Later, the headmaster sighs in relief that Ron isn't hurt and asks him to explain the situation. But Ronan first tells them about Ahayute while cursing him, which shocks both of them. Later, in his office, the headmaster sits calmly and realizes there were moles hiding among the Grantia family. The issue is bigger this time, but he thanks Ron, as he did quite a service this time, and they were able to stop something bigger from happening. Ronan silently says to himself that he should keep it a secret for now that he can see the special mana. He's not sure about it, but if this info leaks, then everyone around him will also be in danger. Furthermore, the headmaster tells him this incident will soon be investigated, and adds how their empire is constantly indebted to him since the blacksmith village situation. So, as a reward, the headmaster asks what Ron wants in return. Ronan's face brightens as he hears this and asks him to approve something he wants to do in school. The next day, at the Filian Grand Plaza, Ron gathers all of the students and informs everyone that since they're tired of the on-campus club activities, he has created a special adventurer club for everyone. Everyone becomes curious and raises questions about it, to which Ron explains it is a purely constructive club with external activities, including actual fighting. To raise new talents who will contribute to the Empire, it's the only club where they can go out with the headmaster's approval. Everyone is excited. He further informs them to visit Galelian Building's first arena if they want to join the club, during the scheduled interview hours. From far behind those students, a mysterious lady with a red scarf on her head looks at Ronan and wonders about him. A few days later, at the Galelian Building, Ron sits hopelessly, wondering why there's no one except Senpai in a cell. Maria explains it's due to the reflection of his so-called interviews over the past few days, how he beats everyone, calling it an ability verification trial. And for those who manage to last, he says terrifying words like, "Are they prepared to sacrifice their life for the club?" Acel also hears rumors spreading throughout the school that if they join the club, they must have at least 10 lives to last long. But Ronan refuses to back down, as according to him, real fights are all about this. He actually needs those who are promising. Just then, Braum stands up again to fight Ron. Ron also stands, asking if he's refreshed now, and insists that he didn't need to see his abilities. But since Braum kept insisting on a fight passionately, he announces that Braum has passed the interview. With that, Ron asks them all to leave and have some rest before things get practical. He also decides to stay a little longer, hoping that maybe someone skilled will drop by. The whole day passes with none of the interviewers showing up, and they start packing up, during which a girl assistant with him politely adds that she would have tried it out as well if it weren't for her assistant instructor duties. Ron freezes and says to himself that even if she tried, he couldn't accept her. She gradually needs to decide whether to give up her dream of becoming the Grand Commander or not, and should think about it carefully. Just then, the red scarf lady shows up. Ronan excitedly asks if she's here for an interview to join their club, to which she agrees and asks for his permission to touch something, pointing toward his body after joining the club. Ronan gets nervous and anxiously scolds her for saying such a shameful thing so suddenly. The girl clarifies that she is talking about the thing sitting on his shoulder. It's Sita. Ron, relieved, says she should have mentioned that from the start, and informs her that she'll definitely be able to touch it after joining their club, as this little animal is always with him. Ron finds this student a bit strange, as he didn't sense her until she got this close. Moreover, Ron first asks for her name and grade, then tells her to demonstrate her techniques over a magically engineered doll. Magic Major Jr. Ophelia D. Knight responds and starts her demo. As energy surges through her body, dark, strong energies surround her. They are both astonished to see that dark attribute magic and its mana are contorted this perfectly, but Ronan senses something more interesting, the blood-red energy exuding from the center of the mana. It's a shadow clan. Soon enough, as the thick fog settles down, she destroys the doll and passes the interview. Just then, seeing Ron's curious face when he notices something, she uses her telepathic magic to find out his question before he even asks. She tells him to leave it just with him knowing, or else it will be annoying for her. Instead, she suggests moving somewhere else because she wants to ask him something as well. Later, Ophelia takes the dream bird in her hands and finds it interesting that it is born from containing the mana in the area. Ron comments that she is just as interesting to him because he heard they left the Empire a long time ago and that they are vampires. She explains that not all of them left. Some still remain and live in hiding, as they don't like tiresome things. Ronan understands that the reason she approached to join the high-profile club is because of Sita's mana. Ophelia agrees and informs him that she felt the energy of blood magic when she first saw it at the plaza, her species' innate magic. After discovering that Sita uses the abilities of a vampire, Ron isn't shocked, as the very first thing Sita did after being born was absorb blood. It makes Ophelia concerned, and she asks him how long it has been since Sita was born. Ron, completely clueless, struggles to tell her the exact age but ends up declaring it to be 2 months. Ophelia finds it strange, as Sita is already exuding blood mana of high density. Suddenly she asks him something and pleads with him to complete her request, mentioning something about research. The next day, Ron and his club members stand in front of a special adventurer club building and acknowledge the headmaster's generosity, as they dedicated a whole building to them. Later, Ron notices a change in the club members' weapons and asks if they are from Grand Carpadoc, sent by Gracia, to which they confirm. Then he notices Maria's sword, which she explains was made suitable for her strength by the Great Commander, so she wants to try it. Acel receives a magic bracelet made with the techniques of the Magic City, and its mana control is much better, so her speed and power have increased twofold. Then Senpai asks Ronan why he wanted them to come armed. Ron suggests they go inside first. Later, Ronan informs them that the one goal for the club is to improve their abilities through real-life experiences to prepare for the imminent day. He continues that the first place they will be discovering is the Vadian mountain ranges, which haven't been explored yet, making the club members nervous. According to him, it will be a good experience as this place is quite unusual, and he has some personal business there as well. Anyways, he commands them to fight from then on. The hallway is empty. Asel asks Ron what he meant earlier. Ron explains there is a problem, and to fix it, they should finish their classes early. Pretty Boy is surprised. Ronan mentions that it's obvious. If they leave, they'd be gone for about a week, but both Femboy and Maria had classes. Doing club activities while still in class would be hard, and the headmaster wouldn't allow it. So the best way is to complete their classes early, just like Ron did. That is the key to being free. In the training room on the second floor, Ron told them he wanted to test their skills before they started their own training. He told them to attack him. He promised not to hurt them, and said he'd only use the back of his sword. With a creepy face, he tells them to try hard, or it wouldn't be fun. Maria replies sarcastically, saying it is already comfortable enough. Senpai comes up with a plan. She wants to show Ron how much they have grown. Osel understands, and with that, Maria pulls out her sword and rushes at Ronan. She struck the ground hard. Ron praises her strength but doesn't know why she hit the floor. Then he sees the broken pieces floating. Femboy is using his powers. The rocks float around him and he tells Maria to start. Asel throws the pieces at Ron, who dodges quickly. Ronan praises his better telekinesis and cuts the flying pieces. But then, Senpai surprises him by predicting his move and gets close. She tells him not to block but to dodge, then swings her sword. Ron stepped back just in time. He is amazed. If he hadn't moved, he would have been hit. Maria doesn't stop and attacks again, blocking his strike, looking worried while Ron was enjoying the fight. He was pleased that they had both improved a lot. Pretty Boy attacked again to push Ronan away from Senpai. A big chunk of the ground flies at him, which he sliced smoothly. He praises both of them as it is clear that they had trained hard, especially Asel seemed like a new person. With that, training is over, and Ron believed they would get even better in 2 weeks. Just then, he insists on starting special training immediately, which makes Femboy and Maria run for their lives. From that day, Senpai and Asel trained hard and lost sleep. 2 weeks later, Ron gives the headmaster early completion certificates for everyone in Ronan's club. Ron said it wasn't for all subjects, but it was enough to get permission to leave school. The headmaster kept his promise and wished them safe travels and good luck. The next day, the club's first adventure was at the Vidian Mountains. Maria is amazed as the mana is pure, even at the entrance. Braum is excited and asks Ron what to do, to which Ron tells to wait, and they are still far from the core. He will tell them after reaching. Then Ronan told them that their goal was to find a special item. The wind blows toward the Olympian temple. It carries a sound that the elf could hear. The elf senses someone has entered the rough land. He decides to meet the guest he hasn't seen in a long time. Ronan finally manages to find the orcs. Those orcs have already built a whole village for themselves. Not only that, but they also seem to have strong fertility. That means they will grow in number very fast. If things keep going like this, soon there will be enough orcs to cover the entire mountain range. Ron understands that this is going to become a serious problem. The people living near the mountain are going to suffer great losses if the orcs are left alone. To stop that from happening, Ronan decides that they have to dry their seeds, which means to end their ability to reproduce and expand. This is going to be their first real battle. Ron's comrades are a bit confused when they see so many orcs, but Ron doesn't seem afraid. He actually says that these orcs are going to be the best opponents for them to fight against. Still, even though the orcs are strong and many, there is another level of danger ahead. That is the dominant species of the mountain range, the ogres. These ogres are far more powerful. Ronan knows that they are going to be very hard to defeat. Their leader, the twin-headed ogre, is extremely strong. Ron himself was not able to beat that ogre in the past. However, the good part is that this ogre is not a current problem. He is going to appear later, so they do not need to worry about him just yet. While Ronan and his group are discussing their plan, out of nowhere an elf appears behind them. Ron didn't sense him at all. He starts to guide them and says that even though their intentions are good, this is not the right time to go after the orcs. He tells them that he is just a priest who lives in the mountains. He is actually an old-age spirit with a divine name, Seniel. Sarante suggests they move to another place to have a proper conversation. This area is not safe, but Ronan stays alert and points his sword towards him. He adds that lately many lunatics have been appearing in their way, so he does not fully trust him right away. He asks the priest to follow what he says and curses him. Later, he somehow manages to guide them calmly and says something that makes him feel very embarrassed. He says that what Ron did to him is the most embarrassing thing that happened to him in the past 200 years. From this, they understand that he is very old and ask about his age. But since he stopped counting his age, he is not sure about it. But there is a rough estimate of about 1,000 years. Everyone froze as they heard it. Ronan realizes that he has been alive since before the Empire was even founded. That shocks all of them. Ron asks about what he said earlier, that the time is not right. Elf explains that he said this because something strange is happening with the monsters these days. The orcs, who are not even nocturnal by nature, are moving around the mountain range every single night. This is very unusual. Even the ogres, who normally never leave their territories, are now seen at the outskirts of the mountain range. This is not normal behavior at all. He advises them to stay very careful, even though they have not yet discovered the real cause behind these changes. That means they are safe for now, but they should remain alert. Just then, he pulls out his barrier magic, and a temple, Seniel's temple, appears in front of the whole group. All of them, including Ronan, are confused. Braum and Acel discuss that this barrier magic is on another level, even greater than their masters. She asks Ron if he knew about it, to which he mocks her, saying, "Can't you notice my surprised face?" He realizes that it's not an ordinary elf. When they reach the temple, he takes them inside and shows them a huge boulder. He says that he serves this boulder, but the backstory behind the boulder might be boring for them, so he does not explain it further. Instead, he just offers them a place to rest. He tells them that the temple has many empty rooms. They can rest comfortably and ask him for anything they need. Just then, Maria mentions that it's a good time to ask about the thing Ronan wanted to know about, the cursed eye habitat. As soon as the priest hears this, he becomes shocked. He asks why they would look for such a monstrosity. Is it because of the curse on him? He understands that strange and dangerous vibe around Ronan was due to this reason. He asks Ron for some of his time because he wants to talk to him in private. Ronan agrees, and both of them go to a quiet place. The elf first starts by telling Ron that from the moment he saw him, he did not feel like Ronan was a normal student. This gets Ron thinking if he is slowly getting swept up by his flow, even without knowing. He wonders whether this elf is really not related to those mysterious people. He thinks about how this priest did not show any reaction even when he mentioned the name Ahayute. He didn't sense their mana either. That makes Ron doubt if he is truly not involved with them. Just then, the elf gives a cup of tea to our boy, adding that it will help him clear up his mind. The tea has a fragrance that Ronan has never smelt before. It seems strange to him. While Ron is trying to understand the scent, he suddenly senses the clear flow of mana. The priest looks at him with a very odd expression and asks our boy in a sarcastic way if he likes the smell of the tea. The question feels strange to Ron. The whole moment feels odd, and he begins to feel a little uneasy. Something about that elf does not feel right, and the strange tea and weird expressions only make it more confusing. Ronan feels like something strange is happening to his eyes, as if his pupils are being replaced by something else entirely. The priest watches him closely and calmly explains that the tea Ron just drank is brewed from a rare herb that grows deep within the mountain range. This herb has a special property. It pierces through veins that have been blocked or suppressed and helps to revitalize a person's senses. It doesn't show its effect in one go usually, but since his energy is blocked due to the curse, it's showing drastic results on Ronan. He tells Ron that he is going to pack the ingredients for him so he can continue drinking the tea regularly. He carefully instructs Ronan to stick to the dosage and take it properly because his condition will only improve slowly and steadily with time. Then, in a firmer tone, he warns our boy to stop using his cursed eye to cleanse his own curse. As Ron gets curious about it, the priest explains that while that monstrosity gets rid of a curse, it also eats away at the person's life force. It may not seem like much damage if used once or twice, but if he overuses it to detoxify, his life will be in much danger. Ron listens, but he cannot help admitting that he wants to resolve the curse as quickly as he can. He's tired of carrying it, tired of the limitations it places on him. He wants to be free. But the elf, with wisdom earned through years of experience, suggests to him that rushing will only end up needing to take a step back. If something bad goes wrong, he won't be able to take back his decision and will end up incurring it. Ronan realizes that Professor Sekret, a skilled one, once told him the same thing, that this curse is difficult for him to remove as well. It takes time and some necessary preparations. Even though he knew that there was someone, Professor Sekret, who would help me, and after meeting that person, he felt rushed. He understands that if things go wrong, he will end up losing his life before he can even think of it. Later, he begins to wonder about the elf, as he can't remember that he has met him in his previous life, but he also doesn't feel unfamiliar. Ronan tells him that he feels rushed because of all the religious fanatics going around lately, those gloomy and eccentric people who await the star's advent. As the priest hears this, he wonders if they have already begun to move again. Later that night, after Ronan has left to rest, the priest stands quietly by his sacred boulder and wonders if those fanatics that Ron mentions are the same group he has heard of, and if they are preparing something dark. If they are indeed the same people, then innocent lives will be lost again soon. He stands there in the silence, questioning himself. Should he still stay back and watch all of this happen without acting? Or is this child the answer that his boulder is giving him as a sign? Just then, Ronan walks in quietly and calls out to the priest. Sarante, the priest, asks him why he is up at this time. Is it because of his uncomfortable bed? But Ron mentions that he just wanted to drink some water, but as he looks at this boulder, it fascinates him. He further asks if that boulder has any hidden meaning. Sarante begins to explain that every 1,000 years, their spiritual order moves 1,000 boulders to the empire's most remote corner, a place called Da Kanja. That land is constantly covered in rain and storms, and most of the boulders placed there do not last longer than 200 years before vanishing. But those rare few that survive the full 1,000 years transform into representations of senile divine order. He tells Ronan that he still remembers a little bit of the day when he and his brothers moved this boulder. Ron understands and asks how he comes to be alone, as it seems like there have been many priests. Sarante shares that everyone has their own situations, and it is not as easy as it seems to devote their life to the God who never answers. Sometimes, he feels the urge to give up and live freely like any normal man, but every time he is about to walk away from all this, a hunch finds him and makes him stay in place. He believes deep down that one day, that very boulder will play a role in saving the world. It felt like a duty that he couldn't pass over to anyone else. As he taps his hand on Ronan's shoulder, he adds that it seems like the time has come nearer. A day later, keeping what Sarante set aside, they officially began to reorganize that special tea, which also shows significant results on the others. With the energy and mana veins, it was a great help in enhancing sensitivity. While the other comrades enjoy the tea, Ron travels around the mountain with Sarante and helps forage for roots. He feels strange as he sees this elf, as he is very kind to them when he just met them for the first time. He shows his genuine heart in all his actions. 2 peaceful days passed with not much happening, but as always, troubles show up from the bottom of the group and leave pain that can't be washed away to everyone. Eventually, the day of the raid on the orc village arrives. Sarante worries if they will be really fine by themselves. As they still didn't find the cause behind those monsters' abnormal behavior, he suggests they prepare a bit more. But Ronan reassures that it will be fine, as he said that the actions of the monsters are changing, but they haven't gotten stronger yet. He praises his comrades that these guys will handle it smoothly. Everyone nervously admits. Ron also adds that they need to head back to school, as their duration of trip is over. To ensure their safety, Sarante gives them a spell, a bit of magic that can allow them to return through the barrier, and with this, they will be able to freely visit the shrine again if needed. He offers for them to come back immediately if they sense anything going wrong, or if they're ever in danger, and suggests never letting their guard down, as the forest is dangerous and quite dark for them to be this strong. Back there, in the forest, nights get dark, and Brigia roams around with her sharp sword with blood on it. She is walking around to find Sarante. With her firm voice, she says to herself that she will meet him herself, as with those idiots she can't pull him out easily. Ronan looks at the orcs and realizes that the orcs had raided a nearby village. He orders his comrades to fight as they advance forward to fight the orcs. The orcs gather together admiring the jewelry that they stole after killing innocent people. Ron helps Asel as they work together closely, managing to take down several orcs one after another. Our boy appreciates Femboy, saying that her accuracy is crazy, and asks if she is feeling it now. She hesitates but follows his orders, taking down the orcs. Asel looks at the bloody corpses of orcs lying down. She lets down her ears, saying that she will receive divine retribution for this later on. Ronan puts his hand on her shoulder, assuring her that if they were to receive a punishment, they would all receive it together. Others also console her, saying that they are together. Brown says that it is obvious that she is the one to receive the biggest punishment, making Pretty Boy cry again. Ron looks at his group, thinking that everyone got a chance to show off their abilities in a real fight, so it was worth it to come all the way to these mountains. Suddenly, Sita tries to get his attention, alerting him to some direction. He asks if something is there, and they find an elf tied to the tree. Asel asks if the orcs left their emergency food as Ron runs to save her. He tells Sita to use healing magic. The elf slowly opens her eyes. Upon realizing, she asks if they are using mana and coughs up blood. Rowana notices that Sita's healing magic is not working. The elf asks if he is from the shrine and then holds his hand, begging him to take her to him. Ronan looks at her in confusion, but the elf keeps saying that they are coming, and if they waste too much time here, then Sarante's life may be in danger, saying that she faints, and the portal opens as Ron runs to the priest with the elf on his back. He asks for his help. As the priest asks if there was an accident and why he is back so soon, he tells him to take a look at the elf first. But Sarante recognizes the elf and calls out her name as Brigia. He raises his hand, asking what happened to her. While Ronan was with Sarante and Brigia, Maria told Braum that she looked around as our boy told them to, but there was no one else there. He replies that luckily it seems like that elf was the only prisoner. Senpai says that it's better to head to the shrine now, but sees Asel kneeling in front of the dead orcs. She asks what she looks for as Pretty Boy tells her that there's something weird about these orcs. Senpai asks if she knows what's wrong with them, to which Femboy tells her that she has never seen something like this before, and it seems they were hidden with double magic until now. She notices that they have magic circles. Sarante carefully tends to Brigia and tells Ron that he has finished the first aid, and he'll be able to relax for a bit now. Ronan asks if she will be okay because even the healing magic didn't work, and asks if she has been possessed by some weird poison. Sarante assures her that he has given her an antitoxin first, so she will be okay. He further adds that he is in our boy's debt now, and if it weren't for him, he would have lost his precious sibling. Ron gets confused hearing that, so Sarante informs him that she is one of Sunil's believers that remain in this world. She once had the deepest faith. He asks Ronan since he has saved someone like her for him, so how can he repay his debt? Our boy suggests not to speak so highly for him, and instead asks him to spill who they were that she was talking about, trembling through fear. Sarante took him near that very boulder. As he stands tall, with a tense voice, he explains that he doesn't know much himself. They are a religious order that worships an unknown being who they accept as their god. Their identity is still hidden. Even the priest doesn't know about them. All he knows is that he has been committing several evil crimes. They call themselves Nebula Clasier. The moment Ronan hears that name, he realizes that they were the ones aiming for Sarante. The priest told him they had already sent several guests to him several times in the past. At that time, Sarante believed they had finally given up, especially since he had been living quite in peace for the last 100 years. But they are still out for him. Seeing him this calm, Ron shouts with concern that this isn't such a thing he should talk about this calmly. He suggests Sarante should run to the archipelago like them. But Sarante refuses, as he can't leave this place with that negative spirit roaming around and harming the innocents' lives. Instead, he asks Ron to leave this place with his comrades. He genuinely doesn't want anyone to get harmed. Ronan understands, but he adds that he will bring the strongest girl he knows to hide till then. Sarante laughs quietly and acknowledges what he says. He grabs our boy's hand and gives him a ring to repay him for saving Brigia. It's like an entry pass at the Magic Tower. If he ever visits the tower, he has to show the ring to the librarian, so they will definitely find info for his curse. He shows his concern towards Ron, as spending time with him has been a gift to himself. It makes our boy hesitate as he gets emotional, and he adds that they will definitely meet again. He will be back soon, so he suggests Sarante take good care of him. As Ronan steps out of the house and the door of the temple closes, there comes Brigia, standing surrounded by violent energies, and greets her sibling Sarante with an evil voice. He is frozen and astonished as he sees her. Sue smirks and sarcastically asks him where he was all this time. The priest understands and says that her religious body sure is violent, to which Brigia comments that it's the same for him, who gave a paralysis poison to his patients. She refers to the antitoxin he gave to her. Sarante admits and explains there is no option when she is captured by the energy of those mere orcs. Brigia tells him how meeting him isn't very easy for her. Even though she tried to catch his attention through those monsters, it wasn't of any help. But unfortunately, she ends up meeting those toys, Ronan and his comrades roaming around with his energy. She decided to cut them and sprinkle them into the air so you would come out, but as a believer, she held it inside. This makes Sarante burn with anger, and he tells her with a deep voice that he wouldn't have let her be. Brigia mocks him, saying he can even make jokes. She suggests they talk now and informs him about the order's command to win over Sarante's Ramation, and if he refuses, then make him dead. Back there, Ronan feels something strange. His comrades rush to him as they were looking for him. Our boy asks them if they checked all the surroundings. Maria tells him that there is no problem, but Estelle has spotted something strange. Pretty Boy explains after Ron left, she found a magic circle in the orc corpses she had never seen before. Just then, a loud explosion echoes. It is from near the temple, Estelle says. Ronan freezes, his eyes widening as he thinks about Sarante. Seconds later, a large number of twin-headed ogres show up from the surroundings and block their way. Back to the temple, Brigia flies to strike and attack towards Sarante, but he pulls out his technique, Ventus, and manages to block her way. Brigia smirks and adds this is what she wants from him and runs to him swiftly, swinging her sharp sword in the air. But somehow Sarante manages to block that strike as well. She tries again, but this doesn't work on him. Helpless, she chuckles and comments that it will be a waste to kill him, so she asks him to let go together so he can get an executive position like her. But he refuses to serve a cult, as he is too religious. However, he mocks her, asking if her order's teaching isn't working for her, as she gets quite rusty to think Rohaheim's shadow is this slow. Brigia tells him that she is just a bit bored of how he didn't pay attention to her, because he was way too busy to make those kids escape. She also mentions how he puts up an act in front of Ronan so he could leave with peace. She is curious why he is protecting them so much. Sarante warns her not to lay a hand on them pointlessly, as they were just guests whom he happened to meet coincidentally. If she does anything wrong, it will not be able to let her go graciously, Sarante adds boldly. Brigia smiles and informs him that she can't do anything, as she has done it already. A large thud echoes. This makes the priest worry, as the sound is from the direction where Ronan and his comrades appeared to be. Just as he lets his guard down, Brigia takes that opportunity and cuts his arm. Meanwhile, in the forest, Ron commands everyone to get their weapons and get behind him, as they can't handle those huge, powerful ogres. Braum stands there still, as he is not able to move his body. One of the huge ogres slams him far onto the ground. Maria and Estelle realize they should run away, but just before they could think of it, the monster throws his powerful strike, which Ronan blocks with his astonishing strength. He commands them to take Sita and look after Braum, as he is injured badly. He can handle them. He swings his sword in the air as he orders them to go. He clenches his hands, holding the sword more tightly, saying in full rage that this bastard will be killed by him. He clashes his swords against the monster's tight and strong body and screams as he orders his co-members to run and take care of the wounded. As he sees the monster's eye, it makes him realize that the circle of magic in its eyes he has seen somewhere. He remembers that it looked like the same magic circles as before, the ones that were controlling the monsters. He tightens his wrist again around the sword as he realizes that it's definitely Nebula. The monster roars, coming toward him. He smashes the sword at the monster's head as it reaches him. He tries attacking it multiple times, but it's not affecting the giant monster a bit. Just as Ron clashes the skin of the monster using powerful strikes, the monster roars and growls, comes at him, and punches him down to the ground. Ronan falls, and wounds are all over his body. He thinks to himself that he would have been quite delighted to be able to continue a fight that he couldn't finish, but that monster hurt his comrade in front of him, which is unforgivable. Rage fills his body, and he curses that monster, warning that he is dead now. With that, Ron flew towards him to give him a good strike. The reason that he couldn't defeat those monsters in his past is because he didn't have a way to pierce his head with a fatal hit. But things have changed now, as he has learnt techniques from his instructor, and he can slice through him. He uses his Navarro-style fourth form technique, and with a revolving sword, he just slices every corner of that monster's body. Ronan lands onto the ground and asks the monster to die already. 1 minute of silence, and then huge thuds are heard throughout the area as the monster falls, breaking down in small pieces. As he puts his sword back, Ron realizes that he still has a lot to learn, as it takes him way too long just to defeat that monster. Later, he rushes towards Asel and Mariah, asking about Braum and if he is fine. They tell him not to worry, as Sita helped him and gave him basic medication, but he still needs a proper checkup. For now he is better, Senpai says. Ron sighs as he feels relief hearing that. Just then, Femboy asks him about what he will do now, to which Ronan replies that he is going to Sarante. As he reaches there, he sees all the blocks and roads blown off as it was destroyed. He realizes that it hasn't been long since he left, so how did this happen? Just then, he hears rocks creaking, and there stands Sarante, all wounded and bleeding, saying that he didn't realize that Ron was going to be safe. Sarante apologizes to him in a breaking voice, as he should have gone to save him. Ron rushes to him and says he won't manage to save anyone in that state, and asks him about what happened here and who did this, but he isn't mentioning anything. Instead, he asks him not to worry and leave as soon as possible, as they've managed to take care of the things for now. As Sarante forces him to leave, mentioning that they will return any moment, a large black shadow appears and pierces his heart, leaving Ronan frozen. Ronan stands there. His eye sees Sarante kneeling on the ground, spitting out blood. As our boy's hand reaches the priest with a flash, Brigida shows up floating through the air and steps on the ground mid-air. She mentions how she almost died. Furthermore, she mocks Sarante, asking if he is fine doing this to his old comrade, using such a dangerous skill after losing one arm, which almost killed her. But as she has the blessings of the stars, she is safe. Then she speaks to Ronan, telling him that she didn't think she'd meet him again. It's impressive how he survived the twin-headed ogre. Ron angrily asks her to introduce herself, to which she adds that she forgot that he didn't see her with that face, so she shapeshifted herself into an elf, and with a smirk, she thanked him for saving her. Seeing that face, Ron remembers that she is an elf who was captured at the orc village. Brigida thanks him again that she was able to cross the barrier because of him, and as a reward, she will kill him painlessly. With that, she teleports instantly and approaches Ron to strike an attack, but unfortunately, he manages to dodge that. Ron asks Sita to heal Sarante and save him. Brigida realizes that he is no ordinary kid. Out of rage, Ronan clenches his teeth with anger and says that she did not only destroy someone else's smithy, but she also spied on the duchy, and now she shows up here and calls herself Nebula Clazer. She smiles, asking if he has met her babies, orcs. Sarcastically, she asks him if he is the one who is going around killing those who were only doing their tasks. Just then, Ron charges at her with his sword, which she dodges smoothly. She admires his wonderful movements at that very young age. There is no doubt that her babies were killed. She strikes back towards Ronan, mentioning that he has made her curious, and now she wants to see more of him. Somehow Ron manages to block her sword, struggling, and realizes that she is strong and she is reading his every movement. He decides to strike her while she lets her guard down. He again slashes his sword towards her, which she blocks with her great power. Both the swords are in a one-on-one battle with each other. According to Brigida, it will be a waste to kill him, so she throws an offer to him. The offer is to join their order, and he will be treated well. She sarcastically asks him if he likes the offer. Just as Ronan shows his distaste, she warns him that he doesn't really have a choice, as she will kill Sarante in the most painful way possible if he refuses the offer. That elf's life is on him now, Brigida adds. With a breaking voice, he asks him to leave, as he will be fine. Ron clenches his wrists against the sword as the anger burns his body, and he confidently informs her that shredding her into pieces is the only decision he makes. With that, he flashes through the air and approaches her to slice her down, but as strong as she is, it is no trouble for her to block these blows. Brigida adds that she will want more of him if he continues to act like this. Ronan continues to blow his attacks, which she respectfully blocks every time. She smiles, realizing it's been a while since she fought this strong, and it will be such a waste to kill him, and grabs his hand, asking him to cooperate, or else she will kill him. Soon enough, her sword pierces through his body, and she mentions that when he wakes up, he will be greeted by starlight. Just when Ronan was struggling to block that sword, Sarante put out his mana shield over Ron. He curses Brigida, saying that he told her if she laid a finger on our boy, he would make her pay. His eyes burn with anger. Ron screams to stop him, but Sarante says that if he keeps pushing himself, he won't be able to make it, and says he will handle her as Ron has done enough. He also adds that he bought him plenty of time, and now he'll take it from here. As he fills up with energy, he orders Ronan to stay back. Brigida comes raging towards Sarante, asking him if he thinks that she won't act out of it. She runs to him, but as she moves, the priest pulls out his magic circles. The flow of energy is so strong that almost Brigida can feel it rumble through her body. He says to her that this is where this fight ends, and with that, he says goodbye to her. Blood spills from his mouth as his body weakens through pain. He needs to end this even if this takes all of his energy. Brigida, struggling to stand still, says in her breaking voice how foolish of him to believe in ghosts. They are the chosen disciples of the star, so as long as they have their blessings, no one can stop them, and there is no need for her to make him change his mind anymore. She screams die and moves towards him. Sita shows in front of him. Sarante gets directly to Ronan and informs him that this is his end, as it seems like Brigida can nullify attacks through the magic blessing of star, but her attacks are restricted due to her injuries, so he suggests he run away and prepare for the day when she comes back for him. He takes the responsibility for all that destruction. When Ron realizes that he is saying his goodbyes, he stands up and shouts out loud, suggesting not to give up, as the fight is not over yet. There is one thing that Sarante doesn't know about him. He never runs away from fights, so he requests to trust him just this once. Brigida gets annoyed and asks him to keep himself in his place as she strikes an attack towards him. A lightning rain appears, which she finds annoying, and she says to Ron that he can't do anything, as she has the blessings of the star. Seconds after, our boy smoothly slashes his sword through her hand without her realizing. Her arm slices and falls to the ground. Ronan confidently mentions that this is what he wants her to think. A moment of silence as she wonders how he gets through the blessings of the star. Scared, she screams and burns with anger in a complete disbelief of what just happened. Our boy suggests she should ask her idiotic star herself about how he manages to attack it. Brigida can't believe this to be the way she'd die. Blood flies around from her wounds and the chopped off arm as her body slams onto the ground. A desperate wish for a little more time is all that Brigida is left with because after so long, she was finally going to know the truth. Her head hits the ground after she is reminded of Sarante's words, and she takes her last breath. Leaning onto his sword, Ronan stands near Brigida's body. While panting, he turns around to look at her and finds her lying down in the pool of her own blood. The sight of that makes him realize that it could have been him in her place if only she hadn't let her guard down by being overly confident about her blessing. Ron recalls the events of his past life and remembers that even then, no one, except for him, used to be able to even point a finger at the giants. This was due to the giant's ability to nullify the attacks of others. This makes him wonder if the higher-up subordinates of Nebula also possess that power in the name of blessing. A shaky call of his name shakes Ronan out of his thoughts. Sarante asks him if he's fine, which makes him realize that the priest's also pretty injured. Blood has spread around him, and when our boy notices it, he quickly backfires on Sarante, asking him if he's all right. Out of worry, he runs to the priest and questions Sita about why she isn't healing the priest with the help of her magic. He then tries to comfort him by telling him that he only needs to hold on for a bit longer since the battle is over. However, Sarante grabs his hand, catching him off guard, and assures him that he is fine. With an exhausted look on his face, he apologizes to Ronan before asking for a favor, remarking that it'd be the last one. Sarante's condition worsens, and he coughs up some blood, which panics Ronan even more. Thus, when he apologizes to Ron for having Prince Charm see him like this, Prince Charm immediately starts apologizing too. With shaking hands, he blames himself for Sarante's condition, but the priest asks him to stop, stating that it was all about timing and not his fault. After a pause, Sarante calls out Ronan's name once again and forewarns him about this being a long fight in which he would have a lot to lose. Not just that, it will also result in many injuries that he has to face. Thus, with a heavy heart, Sarante requests him not to give up. He keeps his grip on Ronan's hand until a green light suddenly flashes out from his chest. Due to the sharp light, Ron had covered his eyes, but when he looked back at him, he noticed that Sarante's body had started turning into stone. The horrifying sight is too unbelievable and painful for Ronan, and he tries to alarm Sarante about his worsening condition. However, instead of panicking, the priest accepts his end and places his hand affectionately on Ron's cheek. By the time he manages to express his gratitude to Ronan for becoming his answer, his entire body has turned into a rock except for his mouth and hand. His last words turn out to be that of assurance when he says to Ron that he'll continue watching over him and will always be there from Senial's side. As soon as Sarante lets out his last words, the light flashes once again. Once Ron opens his eyes again, he finds a green ball floating in the air, right above where the priest was just sitting. The sunlight prevails over the darkness, and the green light fades away. With that, he bids farewell to Sarante and leaves the mountains. After going through the devastating adventure, Ronan returns to school, and all now that he's left with is what Sarante had handed over to them. The club activity report, which is written by Ronan, gets submitted to Principal Krava. He reads through it and acknowledges that the difficulty of their first adventure was quite high. When he asks Prince Charm about his opinion on this, he rather smiles awkwardly. Hesitantly, he states that it was because of that crazy woman Brigia and ensures that it won't be happening again. Thus, he requests Principal Krava not to ban their club activities. Ronan's answer confuses Principal Krava, and after an awkward silence, he clarifies that he wasn't referring to Prince Charm's injuries. Rather, he acknowledges the pain of the death of a close one, and even though Ron hadn't known him for too long, it still isn't a light matter. Thus, he asks Ron if he's actually okay. The question weighs heavy on Ronan's heart, and he clenches his fist as the pain floats to the surface. He accepts that claiming to be alright will be a lie, but he states that if he'd just sit around grieving over Sarante's death, it'd sadden him more. Therefore, he asks Principal Krava not to worry about him and thanks him for being concerned. At the unexpected response of Ron, Principal Krava sighs and decides to let go of the matter. It is so because he can't punish his students for raiding the orc habitat and killing a criminal since it's actually a great accomplishment. Thus, Principal Krava asks Ron if he could promise not to be this rash again if he is to ever come across the same organization again. He continues that he can't bear to sit still and watch his students get injured, as he is the principal of the school. Ron cheers up and gladly agrees to be careful about it. Before Principal Krava can say something, Ron rushes off to get out of the principal's office and promises to see him again after his next adventure. When Ronan has exited the door after apologizing for stirring up trouble, Principal Krava realizes that Ron hasn't been attending the classes for some time, which means that he must not be unaware of how that is going to start soon. Prince Charm heads straight to the Special Adventure Club building after coming out of Principal Krava's office. He opens the door in a hurry, but before he could step inside, he is met with a familiar face, which is that of Schlieffen. Ron is surprised to see him sitting inside and asks him about when he returned. However, instead of answering the question, Schlieffen acknowledges Ronan's arrival indifferently and reveals that he has got something to talk about with Nebula Classier with Prince Charm. Ronan notices the seriousness of the matter when Schlieffen asks him to talk. Thus, he quickly gets inside the club room and gets seated against Schlieffen. Ron asks him what he wanted to talk about with Nebula Classier. However, before Schlieffen can answer, Ron throws another question at him and inquires about whether he has dealt properly with the rat problem in his house. Schlieffen affirms and replies that from about a fortnight ago up till today, they have carried out a large-scale search. They managed to track down 19 traitors till now, and among those, Schlieffen claims to have dealt with 5 himself. He further continues that the rest of the 14 traitors are getting moved to Laudalan soon, and there they'll receive a more proper interrogation. After a pause, Schlieffen reveals the main problem and says that Prohibition isn't working on those traitors anymore. This news shocks Ron, and he questions his own hearing. Schlieffen explains the situation by disclosing that Prohibition stopped when 19 of those traitors were tracked down and the investigations had begun. Thus, considering how thorough those traitors have been, Ron and Schlieffen recognize that they must have already dealt with Prohibition before. This revelation annoys them a lot and starts to wreck his mind about whether there's any other way, but he finds it quite hard to be able to look into their mana and single them out. Meanwhile, Schlieffen gets up to leave, promising to share any further information he might get. Before leaving, he tells Ron that he'd be looking forward to the moment where he can face Ronan once again in the upcoming midterm exams. When Ron hears the mention of exams, his eyes widen in shock since he wasn't aware of the upcoming exams due to not attending the classes lately. 2 days have passed, and Nybros' midterm exams, the real battle high-ranked sword techniques, have begun. It took place on an island under Filian's possession, called Philand, and Navaros conducts the exam. Once all the students have gathered, she starts to explain the instructions of the midterm exam. Since all of her classes have been focused on real battles, she states that she'd want to go to a battlefield somewhere if Schlieffen had the authority. However, it's impossible due to the school guidelines. Where on one side the students are feeling relieved for not getting sent to a battlefield, there is Ron on the other side who feels sad about that not happening. Nevertheless, Navaros instructs them to spread around the island and start a limitless real duel. To clarify the possible confusion, she assures them that no one's going to actually die because she's prepared gear for their safety and points to the bracelets beside her. She explains that as soon as the wearer of this bracelet becomes incapable of fighting, they'll be automatically transported to Filian Grand Plaza. Their injuries will then get fixed there, with a single hand movement by the best healers that will be waiting for the injured student. Thus, in other words, An actual battle is possible in which no one can die, so Neveros tells them to use whatever measures and techniques they've got. Once she's done telling them to go at their full power and try to kill each other as much as they want, she instructs them to come forth when their name is called. Neveros picks up a bracelet and announces that once they put it on, they'll be teleported to the fixed coordinates. The first to get called is Adashan, the Grand Commander, and Ron is surprised to see that she's also participating. When she walks up to Neveros, the other students start gossiping around about how she came in with preferential treatment as a paid student. One of them even calls her shameless for getting graded, but when the other mocks her by calling her a dunce, Ronan gets pissed off. Ron despises the phrase "a paid dunce," but that's now the main objective assessment of the Grand Commander. However, he thinks that if she enters the battlefield with such abilities of hers, she would end up dead. After a while, Prince Charm's name gets called too, and he also gets teleported to a fixed coordinate. When he finds himself alone, he wonders if he's the only one that's got isolated. He thinks about how lucky he's been, because he realizes that in reality, his seniors are hiding from him. When one of the seniors notices that it's Ron, he calls him a monster in his heart, and seethes in anger upon his appearance. On the other hand, Ronan teases them by remarking how uncomfortable they look hiding around the trees. Thus, one of them finally comes out and jumps onto Ronan from behind with his axe. Quickly sensing the attack, Ron immediately dodges the attack and stands behind his senior, who just attacked, and questions his intentions of being harsh on his junior, fragile Ronan. With that being said, Ron places his sword on the shoulder of his senior. By now it's clear to Ron that the ones who got teleported to the same place have formed some kind of temporary alliance, but he mentions that since this is Filion, maybe their abilities to handle situations have become quite good. Before saying anything more, Prince Charm picks up a stone and throws it straight to the student who is sitting on a branch of a tree behind him and is currently aiming at Ronan's head with his bow. MC's grip stays firm on his sword that is placed over the first student's shoulder, whereas the stone he threw at the other student hits him directly on the face, and the student falls off the branch after losing his balance. My guy then insults their strategy, and one of them, after seeing the student fall off the tree and get teleported to Filion Grand Plaza, calls out the rest of them to get prepared since their ambush has failed. The student calls out to others to give their best, because even if Ronan is a monster, he's alone right now. Therefore, all the sophomores come out of their hiding spots, and that one student commands the others to take advantage of being large in numbers and yells at them to attack our boy at once. The sophomores lunge onto him together, but my guy figures it out. Even though they were seniors, all it took him to send them to the Filion Grand Plaza was a little more time than usual, but he wonders if it's really okay. On some other side of the island, a bunch of seniors encircle a female student. Despite being alone, she gives them good competition until they corner her on a cliff and announce that they're going to finish off this battle. Calling her by her name, Adashan, they demand her to give up, but her confidence doesn't budge. The three boys corner Adashan to a cliff and demand she give up. Despite being in a disadvantageous situation, she glared into their eyes while holding her sword straight. Analyzing the situation, Iron Rose looks at two of them and notices that they've let their guard down because of her being past her limits, and also because they think that the third guy, a third-year top student, Ayun, is going to have their back so they won't lose against this woman. Thus, thanks to the carelessness of the two boys, she can clearly spot openings on them where she can attack. Adashan musters up the courage to attack and pulls up the sword at once from the ground, hoping that she won't miss this opportunity. Before the two of them can wrap their heads around what's just happened, she's jumped on them. Giving her best not to fail at this opportunity, she slices the throats of them and then runs towards Ayun. While continuously reminding herself not to stop and lose her momentum, Adashan decides to run towards Ayun in a single go. However, unexpectedly, Ayun swings around his weapon and strikes it on her chest as soon as she comes closer to him. She can't believe what she just faced and is sent flying back. Once Adashan has landed onto the ground, Ayun confesses to being confused earlier about what tactics she was using. He claims that it all turned out to be some cheap and childish tricks. After calling her pathetic, he says to her that even though she's smart, she must be well aware that there's no way she can beat him. He walks closer to her and after giving a terrifying glare then puts things to an end. All of this is witnessed by Ronan, who silently sits on a branch of a nearby tree, enjoying their fight. He recalls the Grand Commander's fight and judges it to be her best strategy to exploit geographical features for confusing her opponents. Moreover, he acknowledges how she didn't miss the chance to strike and displayed her strong basics. Nevertheless, my guy still finds a gap in her fight, which can't be exceeded by the Grand Commander right now. He is about to deduce something he's certain of about post-midterm exams, but he gets distracted when he witnesses Adashan blocking Ayun's attack when he tries to end the battle. Their weapons clank against each other when Ayun confusedly questions Adashan's sudden defense, asking her if she wants to end up in a worse condition than she already is in. However, she just smugly reminds him that the exam isn't over yet, and she hasn't either. With that being said, this Iron Rose ducks and slides to get beside Ayun and swings her sword around to strike his neck. Despite her tactic, she again fails in doing so when Ayun blocks her attack with his weapon, but still her sword makes a shallow cut on Ayun's cheek. This turns him furious and he hits her back with his weapon. Grunting out of pain, Adashan falls to the ground after getting hit. Ayun points his weapon immediately to her head, remarking how it's making him look bad against a mere dunce student. Thus, he asks her a question. While she keeps her head down, he asks her about who's backing her for her to act up like this. Ayun claims that he's always been curious about her background and abilities and questions why she isn't giving up when she isn't even that excellent, like the new student Ron is. He continues to look down on her and keeps asking her regarding her actions while degrading her abilities. The continuous defeat and negative comments remind her of her childhood, and she finally answers to Ayun that the reason that she's doing all of this without considering giving up is because she has to become a Grand Commander at any cost. Her answer catches him off guard since he wasn't expecting anything like that, so he expresses his disbelief. However, she claims that she doesn't have the option to give up, because it's a dream that no one else can fulfill for her. Her confession has moved something inside Ron as well, as he begins to stare at her in a weird manner. When she claims to have faith in her fate to make her achieve her dream, Ayun gets pissed. He fails to understand anything that she just said to him, and he states that she isn't the type to even try to understand anything. Out of frustration and anger, Ayun swings his weapon around, telling her how she should get lost for not knowing her place and talking about dreams. When his weapon is too close to hitting her, he states that he can't hear her further. Nevertheless, his weapon fails to reach her because a sudden roar of voice commands him to stop and slices his weapon's head in two. At this sudden happening, both Ayun's and Adashan's eyes widened in confusion and disbelief. After apologizing for intervening in their battle, Ronan instructs Ayun to stop at that. He then mockingly compliments him for doing good, and with a swift motion of his sword, Ron slices Ayun's body in half. The scene leaves Iron Rose in shock, and she can't believe that Ron is standing in front of her. Hesitantly, she calls out MC's name, and he turns around to look at her. Ronan saves Adashan, and he asks her for some of her time because he is curious to know about her reasoning for becoming a Grand Commander. She tells him the reasoning and her grim past, which has encouraged her to choose the path to become a Grand Commander. She says that she used to have a family who was sent out to fight the werehumans when the humans and werehumans had land disputes. It was a failed strategy by the higher-ups which sent her family to their deaths. In the end, we're humans, and humans came to a peace agreement, and all the lives were lost in vain. She wants to become a Grand Commander so no one else has to be sacrificed meaninglessly. Suddenly, both of them feel pressure increase in the atmosphere. It seems like someone is heading towards them. Ronan tells Adashan that he is short on time and tells her that she looks like a person who named an ability called Shadow Mana. This ability is quite tricky to achieve, but once someone meets the requirements, they are most likely to obtain immense power. He tells her that with some effort she would be able to use the same ability, and he will aid her in her journey. Afterwards, he pushes her off of the cliff and eliminates her. Just then, Schlieffen arrives there, and both Ronan and Schlieffen engage in combat after talking briefly. A new battle begins between two opposing forces. Adashan gets teleported back to the school and realizes that she has returned to safety after getting eliminated by Ronan. The only ones who are left in battle are our boy and Schlieffen. All of the students, along with Iron Lady, observe their fight. Both of the fighters clash against each other with neither of them backing down. Ronan is surprised by Schlieffen's adaptability to the Tempest Sword. He has managed to become way more powerful than he used to be in his past life. The battle continues and both of them manage to cut each other right from the gut. The students who are observing their battle are left in awe. They cannot comprehend how the first-year students are fighting like that. Nabaros looks at the battle and she finds it interesting since both of them have grown a lot since their last encounter. However, they both have depleted their mana reserves and the next clash will decide who will become the winner. Schlieffen compliments Ronan by saying that he is lucky to have a rival like him, but they realize that they need to end this fight soon. They both power up to max and prepare to give it their all in one last blow. MC is determined to bring Schlieffen to his side, but in order to do that, he first needs to make the hierarchy clear. He needs to show his superiority over Schlieffen. He moves with rapid speed despite his injuries. Schlieffen is unable to keep up with his speed, and in a desperate attempt, he uses the Tempest Blade and launches slashes all around him. He ends up hurting himself in the process. Ronan respects his will to win, and responds with appropriate determination. Both fighters are bleeding heavily from all the attacks they have tanked. In the end, both of the fighters clash their swords one last time. Students look at the fight and hold on to their hearts as this is the end of the match. Both of them finally collide, screaming their lungs out, and with a large explosion their battle ends. When the dust settles, Schlieffen falls down first and Ronan follows him and falls as well, but not before declaring that he won the match. The students cheered loudly, as this battle was so immense and impressive that they couldn't hold it inside any longer. Ronan wakes up in the medical room after the battle ends, and Nabaros and Adashan tell him about the outcome of the battle. It was a tie. To Nabaros' surprise, our hero takes this outcome lightly and doesn't cause a ruckus. She thinks that he has matured in both physical and mental ways. After a small conversation, Nabaros tells him that he was able to use mana just in his last attack. However, he doesn't seem to have fully grasped it because he doesn't remember using it. She guides him and tells him to go and meet up with Professor Jaredin, who is a master of mana. Adishan and Ronan head out to find Professor Jaredin. She tells him about Professor Jaredin, who is a master of mana, and even other professors ask for his help. She asks him about his encounter with Schlieffen after he got discharged from the medical room. In a flashback, Ronan asks Schlieffen to join his club, which he refuses. However, when our hero mentions his sister Iriel, who is going to move to the islands, Schlieffen quickly signs the paper and joins his club. Ronan and Adishan finally arrive at Tower 41, where Professor Jaredin is. Top G comes to them and asks why they have come there. Adishan tells him that they were sent by Nabaros to help Ron manifest his mana. Top G tells our boy that he better have some money on him because he doesn't do anything for free. He charges a fee for any work that he must do outside of his working hours and demands the same from Ronan. Ronan and Adishan arrive at Jaredin, who asks for money in exchange for helping him. He demands 10 gold per hour for each person, and Ronan finds this offer quite expensive. He thinks that Top G is ripping off students. He asks him if there is any other way he could pay it off, since he doesn't have any money on him. Top G tells him to go back to where he came from and refuses to help. Just then, he notices strange mana emitting from Ronan's ring. He offers to help as he says that it seems there is a way he could pay off his dues. Three of them head towards Top G's place while Ron talks about the ring. He wonders what kind of place this is since it has been locked down pretty tightly that not even a sound can be heard from outside. Top G requests if he can observe the object before beginning. Ronan hands over the ring and tells him to treat it carefully. Top G studies the ring and finds out that there was an elf who devoted over 2,000 years into all elements to make mana this clean. He puts his conditions and says that the conditions to which he would help them is that he will be allowed to absorb a little bit of mana from the ring. He explains that he needs that mana in order to conduct an experiment that he has been working on. He promises to provide his utmost support if Ron will allow him to absorb some of the mana. Ronan finds the offer pleasing but demands that Jaredin deal with Adishan's problem as well. After a brief negotiation, Top G finally agrees to Ron's terms. He compliments Ron's negotiation skills. Jaredin makes a magic circle on the ground and asks Ronan to stand there. He says that his problem takes priority since that scoundrel sent him to him. Ronan goes and stands in the circle, and Top G places his hands on his back and says that it doesn't seem like it has been long since his senses were opened. He says that he cannot find many traces of magic being used in his body, and asks if he has never used his mana until now. Ronan tells him that he could only see it, but is unable to use it because some evil person casted a curse on him. Jaredin tells him that it is no ordinary curse either, and he starts to use his mana and tries to open it forcefully. He says that Ron will feel like a knife is cutting his spine when he begins it, and asks if he can endure it. Ron asks what he means by that, but before he could get his answer, a sudden pain flows through Ron's body and he screams in pain. Top G uses his mana to get inside his body and travels to his curse. He looks at the curse and finds it quite easy to eliminate it. However, this confidence is shattered when he comes face to face with the curse. His entire mana body turns into bones and disintegrates in an instant, and Jaredin is startled when he realizes that the curse is trying to flow inside him as well. He gets pushed back instantly and screams in pain. His condition starts to get worse as he pukes blood out. He quickly starts to chant a spell. Ronan realizes that this is the same spell that Eli memorized back then. A mouth appears under them all and swallows them whole. Just then, Professor Secret arrives there. She asks them to move aside because she needs to help Top G first. She asks Ron if Top G tried to channel his mana into his body. Ron tells her that he certainly did that, and that he wanted to widen the blocked mana path in his body. Secret tells him that the extreme curse that he carries around, a part of it has ridden the mana and moved to Jaredin. This curse is something that only he can handle easily and no one else. She warns them that if it continues like this, then Top G is surely going to meet his end really soon. Ronan is worried that the professor is going to die because of his curse. However, Secret tells him that he will be fine since the curse isn't deeply rooted. She uses his magic power and draws the curse out from Jaredin's mouth. A Grosteka creature comes out from his mouth. Secret grabs the curse and throws it towards Ronan, who slashes it into tiny pieces and puts an end to that curse. Top G finally feels a bit relieved after getting rid of that curse. He thanks Secret for saving him. She tells him that Ron is the same person she told him about before. Jaredin tells Ron that he kept his promise and his mana channels must be open now. Secret observes him and finds that there is surely mana flowing throughout his body now. She cannot understand the reason, but says that the curse blocking his mana meridians has been weakened. However, the curse is still trying to close his mana meridians, but it is better than before. Ronan asks her excitedly if he can use mana now. She tells him that he can, but it will take him about 20 years of training to be able to use his mana freely. Jaredin tells him that he can shorten that time span if he uses the mana practice method he invented. He sits down with Ron and places his hands on his back. He asks him to listen carefully and guides him through the process of mana handling. He creates a mana path inside Ronan and asks him to use his mana to follow the path. Ron quickly adapts to his ways and memorizes the path. Jaredin is surprised that he was able to memorize it that fast. He tells him to repeat it daily whenever he has time. Ron looks at his hand and thinks that he is changing from the past when he couldn't even imagine having mana. He turns around and thanks Top G for helping him out. Just then, Jaredon falls on the ground out of exhaustion. He grabs Ronan by the sleeve and says that he kept his promise and solved his problem and demands that he does the same now. Ron tells him to take care of himself first and then he can have the ring. However, Top G tells him that his body isn't important right now. There is something much more important to him, something that he needs to save even if he has to sacrifice lives. He looks at him and requests to let him have the ring now. Ronan carries him on his back and Adasan tells him that the nearest clinic is at the Lexian Hall. They all start to move out. However, the gate's locks are tightened by Jaredon. Top G opens another door which leads to some secret underground room. He tells Ron that he needs to get down there before her rose withers. 3 of them head inside the door and go deeper inside. They are shocked to find out that Jaredon has secretly been experimenting on something. There is a woman inside a tank who seems to be in deep sleep. Ronan puts down Top G and looks around to find anything that can be used to heal him. He finds a book which belongs to Jaredon. He reads the book and learns about all the past experiments Top G has done in order to resurrect her dead wife, Sunya. Top G has been experimenting on his dead wife's body by using different materials from the monsters that are so rare to get his hands on. This explains why he needs a lot of money. Headmaster Kratir aids him and appoints him as a professor. Jaredon transfers Sonya to Filian's Mage Tower basement in order to keep on experimenting on her and try to revive her. After attempting to revive her for 134th time, he still has not made any progress. Ronan understands why Jaredon required tons of money, because the materials he has been using are pretty rare, and he requires money to buy them from black market. He finds a suspicious paper hidden inside the book and takes it. He thinks that it may belong to the rebellious crowd. Jaredon gets up and asks Ron if he is going through his stuff. He denies the allegation and assures him that he has no mana, so he was just looking around to find something that he can use to aid in his recovery. Elsewhere, a shady mage bows down to a vampire and tells her that Top G will be desperate for the essence of fresh blood that only she can provide. She plans to capture Jaredon and says that Top G is going to get in her bait because he desperately needs the blood and that humans are quite stupid to fall into her traps. Back at Jaredon's place, Top G gives back the ring to Ronan after taking some of its mana. He thanks him for letting him take some of its mana. He asks Ron to keep what he saw inside the lab a secret. He tells Adishan that he will look into her problems tomorrow. Iron Lady and Ronan depart from there and head out on their ways. Ron takes out the letter he stole from Top G's book. To his surprise, it turns out to be a blood letter. Ophelia arrives there and meets up with him. They both head towards the Special Adventure Club and have a conversation. Ophelia asks him how he got his hands on the blood letter. She tells him what that letter is. After explaining how it is used, she uses her abilities to decrypt the letter. In the letter, there are instructions to come to the blood hook if one wants to get their hands on the essence of fresh blood. This letter was meant for Jaredon, who is looking for the essence of fresh blood which is needed for his next experiment. Ophelia tells Ronan that the blood hook is an organization based on young, immature vampire children who are not older than 200 years. Their objective is to revive the prime of vampires by doing all sorts of gruesome things. She asks him who this letter belonged to. He tells her that this belongs to Jaredon. She seems well aware of his strengths and powers. However, she tells Ronan if Top G really is after the essence of the fresh blood, then he will have no other option but to accept the vampire's offer, since the essence of fresh blood can only be activated by the will of the vampire who gave it away. After some time, a few vampires are standing outside a cave waiting for Top G's arrival. A guy with a hood arrives there and the vampires think it is Top G, the new kin candidate their master spoke about. They chatter amongst themselves since they cannot sense any powerful energy from him. After a brief conversation amongst themselves, they greet Jaredon. One of the vampires requests Top G to take off his hood in order to verify his identity. He accepts the request and takes off his hood and confirms his identity. The vampire thanks him for confirming his identity, but when he looks down, he finds that Jaredon is carrying a sword despite being a mage. He can't wrap his head around why a mage type would be carrying a sword. Suddenly, Top G grabs his sword and moves real close to the vampire and slashes him in pieces. It turns out that this is not Top G, but Ronan, who is disguised as Jaredon. A few days ago, Ophelia gave Ronan a potion that would help him to shapeshift for 30 minutes and become Jaredon. She offers to come along to aid him. However, Ron refuses and says that he will be fine. She may get in trouble if she goes against her own kind for this trivial matter. He cuts the rest of the vampires in pieces and spares one. He gets information out of him about the cave and vampires before putting an end to his life. He heads inside the cave and finds that there are no traps, just like that vampire said, and he continues to move inside and thinks that he would have spared his life if he knew that he was honest. Ronan gets deja vu as he continues to look around the cave and its patterns. Suddenly, a strong scent of blood passes by his nose and changes his focus from the cave to itself. He comes across a door from behind where the smell is coming from. He heads inside and finds multiple vampires feeding on corpses of humans. Zwei von Arnschtafel welcomes him and asks if he would like to join them in the feast. Ronan stays calm and rejects the offer and asks why so many of them have gathered for a deal. Zwei von tells him that it is only fair to welcome such a talent like himself with this much effort, and says that it has been a while since all of the Bloodhook has gathered like this. Prince Charm asks the conditions to obtain the essence of fresh blood from Zwei von. She tells him that they are quite simple. He simply has to become one of them in order to get his hands on fresh blood. She tells him that if he refuses to accept the offer, there is no way that he will ever get the fresh blood. He says that she is asking something ridiculous, and he doesn't plan on becoming anyone's slave. She tells him that this is no master-slave relation, but a big leap towards the future, a rebellion against the old generation vampires, and she wants Jaredon to be part of it. Ronan looks around and says that it doesn't seem like he has any choice because if he rejects the offer, it doesn't look like he will be allowed to leave unscratched. Zwei von compliments him for his sharp observation and tells him that he doesn't really have a choice, as no matter how skilled he may be, the magic tools installed here are going to cause trouble for him to use any sort of magic. Even if Jaredon were to push himself to the limit and use mana, he would only end up rupturing his mana core and won't be able to use the magic ever again. Zwei von warns Roran to accept the pact if he doesn't want to see his beloved wife turned into a blood bag like those corpses lying nearby. Roran takes off his hood and compliments them for their preparation. He says that it was a good decision by him to come by himself. If Jaredon would have come there, then surely he must have faced some issues. His disguise finally wears off and his real face comes forward. The vampires wonder how a mere human made his way inside there. However, their conversation is cut short, just like their limbs after Roran raises his sword and cuts them all into tiny pieces in an instant. He takes off his cloak and puts it aside and prepares to exterminate the rest of the blood mosquitoes. Ronan takes off his cloak and says that today is the day of extermination. The Blood King looks at him and asks who he is. He says how dare a pathetic human like himself not know his place. However, Prince Charm disappears from his place within an instant and reappears before her. He can't read his movements at all since he moved so fast. He starts to cast her blood ability. However, before he could do that, Ronan swings his sword and slashes off her hand. His rampage doesn't end there. He continues to deliver swift cuts and gets rid of all her limbs in an instant. It happens so fast he barely gets any time to react. He is left with only screams of pain as he loses all her limbs in an instant. He says that how can a damned human do something like this? He asks him if he thinks he is going to survive after what he just did. However, before he could finish her sentence, Ronan hits her nose with a sword's butt and throws her against the wall. He tells her to fuck off and sit in corner for a while, and that he will make sure to especially take care of her till the very end. The other mosquito goons are left in awe. One of them comments that even if their boss was being sloppy, there is no way he would get attacked like this. They start to fear him and say that Prince Charm is no ordinary human. The Bloodhook prepares to attack. Ronan calls them blood mosquitoes and says that he heard that they can use blood as weapons, and it turns out to be true. One of them uses blood bog ability and freezes his feet at one place. The rest of the mosquitoes start to launch their attacks using their blood daggers and swords. However, Ronan stays at one place and deflects their attacks with ease without any effort. He slashes off some of them and cuts the limbs of others. Despite that, the mosquitoes continue to attack him. Try to land any attack on him, but they fail to do so every time. Prince Charm thinks that they sure are quick as expected of the mosquito bastards, and their regeneration ability is quite annoying. One of the mosquitoes uses his bloodshot ability to try and attack Prince Charm from afar because they can't attack him in close combat. This effort seems worthless as well because he dodges that as well. He thinks that these mosquitoes have a magic ability that rivals an intermediate rank mage. He leans back and thinks that if this is the fighting power of the Bloodhook, then there is no problem. He shouts as his fangs come out, and with swift movement he throws slashes all around him, taking care of all the mosquitoes in an instant. The limbs and bodies of dead mosquitoes fall all around him as he stands there in the middle of all this chaos and blood. One of the Bloodhooks remains, who used his ability to restrain Ronan's movement. He wonders what he is witnessing. He questions himself how a human can move like this, despite being restrained by his ability. He wonders if he really is a human. Prince Charm stands there with flesh parts rain around him. He asks why he is standing over there instead of attacking him. He tells him that he is the only one left. He compliments him by saying that his efforts are praiseworthy. That is why he was pretending to get stuck at a place. However, he tells him that his swords are a bit special. He exudes a menacing aura which makes Bloodhook tremble in fear, and he thinks about running away. Just when he turns around to run, Ronan jumps and slashes him from center and cuts him up in 2 clean pieces. He tells him that he shouldn't have run and left his friends behind. Prince Charm looks at King and says that since he has dealt with all the interrupters, now is the time to finish their postponed conversation. He smirks evilly and his eyes glow red. The Blood King starts to regain his consciousness, and he wonders what is happening around him. He thinks to himself that there is some kind of needle stabbing him. It turns out to be Ronan, who is stabbing his sword into his thigh. Prince Charm tells him that he was starting to get worried that he might have died on him. King thinks what this is. how a single human child murdered all their members in that brief moment. Ronan tells him that his friends aren't in good condition because they kept regenerating, so he couldn't just leave them be. He smiles and tells him that if he doesn't want to follow them, then he better take out the essence of fresh blood, while he is asking nicely. The king looks down and seemingly talks to someone there. He asks where he was when all this happened. He says if it was him, then he could have saved them all. He screams and asks just why he didn't help. Ronan asks him if he has finally gone crazy because he keeps talking to himself and asks who he is talking to. Just then, a figure appears behind Prince Charm. He says that he won't repeat again and asks him to move. Ronan is surprised by his presence and feels threatened. He moves back swiftly and thinks if that guy had shown any killer intent, then he would have died just then. Balzark von Barshaba talks to the king and says that he is quite disappointed in him. He says that when he made an offer to him, he said he would bring Jaredin into kin. Balzark von Barshaba looks down on him and says that he spoke great words for someone who would end up in this pathetic state. He tells the king that he is unbelievably brazen, a child of the Arnstoffel family. He says that not only is he pathetic, but he also cannot see the reason. He lifts his palm and says that he has failed the plan, and starts to take the essence of fresh blood back. Ronan looks at this scene and wonders what is happening. Balzark von Barshaba starts to drain the essence from the king. The king begs for another chance, but he doesn't receive it, and Balzark von Barshaba drains all his blood and leaves his body dried of blood. Balzark von Barshaba fully extracts the essence out of his body. Ronan calls out to Balzark von Barshaba and tells him that he cannot just come here and take that with him. He raises his sword towards Balzark von Barshaba, seemingly challenging him to a battle. He tells him that if he is the owner of the essence, then he will need to cooperate with him. If he wants to return in one piece, that is. Balzark von Barshaba tells him that his boundless arrogance is similar to his. He finds his words quite interesting. He looks at him and says what he is going to do if he refuses to cooperate. Ronan prepares to attack and moves towards him and says that if that is the case, then he just needs to get beaten up a bit. Prince Charm manages to land an attack on Balzark von Barshaba's palm, and it starts to bleed. Balzark von Barshaba compliments him and says that his fangs are sharper than they appear to be. He says that it seems that he is worthy of impersonating his name if he was able to damage his body, which was strengthened with the mana of blood. He starts to get curious and wonders if Ronan has any other talents. He says that he will especially lend him a hand, so it will be in his best interest to do his best. Balzark von Barshaba starts to accumulate blood in his hand and uses the blood cutter to attack Prince Charm. Ronan takes up his sword and blocks the attack, but starts to get pushed back by the sheer force of the attack from Balzark von Barshaba. Ronan swings his sword and manages to cancel out the attack eventually. However, to his surprise, Balzark von Barshaba prepares another attack and uses the bloodshot. Prince Charm is surprised to see this attack and remembers that he previously faced an attack like that, but managed to dodge it without any issue. However, this attack is far greater than the one he previously encountered. He takes up his sword and repels the attack. Balzark von Barshaba smiles and says that he has never seen this in his entire life. He tells the hero that he is not only offsetting his magic, but he is able to cut through mana itself. Balzark von Barshaba says that he didn't have high expectations, but it turns out to be rather interesting. The hero says that he sure is the head mosquito bastard who keeps buzzing away so noisily. Ronan asks him to shut up and hand over the essence this instant. Balzark von Barshaba smiles and says that he loves his spirit and he will demonstrate the worthy respect for giving him a fun time. He starts to power up an attack and Ronan starts to move closer to him. Suddenly, a voice calls out to them and asks both of them to stop. It turns out to be Ophelia de Knight, who lands between them both. Balzark looks at her and asks if she is really the Ophelia de Knight. Ophelia says that although she is not delighted to see him, it has been a while since she met Balzark. Ronan asks Ophelia why she came there even when he asked her not to come. He asks if she knows this mosquito head. She tells the hero that she surely knows him. She tells him that his name is Balzark von Barshaba, the relative of the Shadow Duke who rules the vampire world, and the strongest second-in-command who supports him. Balzark says that he never imagined that he would meet her there and tells her that he really missed her. He starts to move towards her while asking her well-being and says that it has been over 83 years since he last saw her. He asks why she is interfering in that brat's business. He says that these trivial things do not matter. What matters is that they both are together. However, before he could finish his sentence, Ophelia asks him to stop right there and not come any closer. Balzark closes his eyes and thinks back to that incident long ago. He says that it seems more time is required till he is forgiven by her. Ophelia says that she is aware that it was an inevitable thing. He had no choice but to block her sister from hurting the Duke. She says that if she thinks back now, her younger sister wasn't in her right mind back then, as if she was entranced by something. She says that he must know as well that he cannot take back what happened that day. Balzark says that he understands her feelings, so she doesn't have to worry, and that he was prepared for it. Ronan stands there and wonders if things are over. Ophelia asks Balzark how come he is working with the Bloodhook. She says that the person she knew wouldn't have worked with those kids. She asks if he has some business with Jared and Stonestong too. Balzark says that the man she knew would have only one reason, and says that he has an unfinished fight with him. He tells her that he coincidentally met him on the west side of the continent and fought him with a fighter's pride on the line. He has fought many strong people with strong abilities, but only a few were good enough for him. If only the rising sun had not interrupted, he is sure that would have gone down as one of his best fights. Afterwards, he chased Top G again, but he was already gone, so perfectly that even he couldn't find any of his traces. After that, a few years passed. While he was suppressing that unappeased thirst, those children came to his castle with an offer. They said they will find Jaredon's whereabouts, and that if he lends them the essence of fresh blood, they would not only drag him in front of him but turn him into their kin as well, so that he can have an eternal battle with him. He says that it was clear what they had planned, but it didn't matter, since at most, it was the struggle of some kids. In the end, it was all for nothing. He points out Ronan and says that it was all thanks to this kid who is next to her. Balzark thinks that even with a restriction to his power, the fact that the hero was able to keep up with him, even for a moment, indicates that in the next 5 years, he will definitely become a rival who will be able to put a sword to his neck. He looks at him and thinks that this strange energy is something he has never felt before. His hand starts to twitch in excitement. However, he controls himself and thinks that he cannot do it again. He cannot hurt his friend twice. He hands over the essence to Ronan and asks him to take it. The hero asks if he really is going to just give it to him and asks if it's super rare even for vampires. Balzark tells him that it is true that it is quite rare since most vampires won't be able to get it even if they were to work their entire life. He says that, however, he needs to give that much to the future prey he has his eye on, and for it to be a deserving present, for a friend he hasn't seen in the last 80 years. He uses his bloodshot ability and destroys a wall nearby. He asks Ronan to look over there and says that it won't do him any harm to look over there. He tells him that he sensed the same strange energy from there. He tells him that it has been coming from that past wall since earlier. He starts to disappear and says that he will take his leave now and vanishes from there. The hero returns back and hands over the essence to Jaredon. He asks Ronan how he managed to obtain the essence of fresh blood and asks if he is really giving it to him. The hero smiles and says that of course he is handing it over to him since he worked so hard to get it. Top G holds his hand and thanks him sincerely while sitting on his knee. Jaredon remembers about his wife who has been in a coma for a long time. His eyes begin to tear as he trembles with emotions and tears roll down on his face. Ronan sits down at him and smiles and says that he didn't even let him boast a bit. Meanwhile, Balzark observes them both from a distance. Balzark says that there is no fight more boring than one with someone who has lost their fighting spirit. He said that he only came there today because he was curious about how his old rival was doing. It turns out that he was talking to Ophelia, who is standing behind him. He tells her not to worry as he won't do anything further. Ophelia closes her eyes and says that she is aware that he won't do something so dishonorable as this. She says that she just wanted to thank him for helping his friend. Balzark smiles and says that this is a huge advancement in only 83 years and asks if he should thank Ronan. He says that he wishes to stay forever, but he deplores the fact that he cannot stay any longer. Balzark tells Ophelia that even among the vampires, there is an evil group making quite the trouble. To his understanding, it is them who stripped up the Bloodhook. He tells Ophelia if she ever needs him, she can contact him. He tells her that he always looks forward to her calls. With a beautiful exit, he calls her his eternal rose and disappears from there. Afterwards, Professor Jaredon executed his 144th experiment using Sarante's mana and the essence of fresh blood. Considering the circumstances of the experiment, it'll take a while for the results to be released. But that waiting seems like a hope for Top G to continue living. Top G tells Ronan that he has changed since he last saw him. That mysterious energy that was cutting away at the curse in his body has gotten way stronger. He asks him if something happened during his battle with the Bloodhook. Ronan says that a lot happened, but in essence, he just got lucky. He remembers back to the time when Balzark told him about mysterious energy coming from the wall. He ventures inside the broken wall where he finds an idol of Seniel. Seeing as how it was hidden, he determines that even the Bloodhook bastards were unaware of its existence. He wonders if these old grounds are of an abandoned shrine. Just then, the idol starts to shine bright. The green energy from the idol starts to get absorbed in Ronan's hands. Back in the present, Jaredon doesn't understand what exactly happened, but he says that Ronan sure is incredibly lucky. Thanks to the energy getting stronger, his mana meridians have also gotten larger. However, it still needs to be tidied up, but with this much, you may be able to wield mana to quite the considerable range. He says that he doesn't need to tell this to him since he must be feeling it himself. Ronan says that he definitely feels it way better than he did last time. He wonders if this means that he will be able to use proper sword chi, and not just an imitation of it. 4 days later, Romera Mountain's front city, Marbas. Ronan appears there and says that it is just as Schlieffen said. A wyvern must have appeared there. The hero says that the reason they randomly came to his hometown, the Romera Mountains, is because he received unexpected news from Schlieffen. He said that the monsters surrounding the Romera Mountains were in a state of frenzy for an unknown reason. Schlieffen says that they are lucky that the damage hasn't reached Nimbutin yet, and some of the Grantia family's knights have been dispatched, but that's not enough for them to be at ease. He continues and tells Roran that there were even a few witnesses who said that they saw a wyvern in the skies. He says that due to their ability to fly as well as their possession of deadly poison on their fangs and claws, even the top mercenaries are afraid of them. He warns him if a whole pack of them gather, then they cannot give 100% surety that they will be able to protect Iriel. This was the opinion of Schlieffen. That is why they decided to prepare soon. In the present, Schlieffen mumbles to himself that he cannot forgive them for completely ruining Iriel's plans to move that has been set up perfectly. He swears to end the bloodlines of all the monsters in the mountains once they get Iriel to safety. Ronan asks him to stop mumbling to himself and go ahead and command the knights who have been dispatched. He tells him that Asel and he will quickly follow from behind. Schlieffen asks why he wants to split up. The hero tells him that he wants to take a look around the area because something seems off, and it is making him uncomfortable. He tells him not to hit on her just because he is not there if he doesn't want to die today. Schlieffen questions him how he can say something so absurd to the Knight of Grantia. However, he says since there is something he has to check, there is no helping it. The longer he delays this, the longer Iriel's safety will be put to risk. As a knight, he cannot accept that and heads out first. The cutie asks Ronan what was the thing that is making him feel uncomfortable. The hero tells him that the monsters that were peaceful suddenly started acting up, and large-size monsters have begun revealing themselves. He finds this pattern similar. He says that back in Grand Carpadoki and Vadian Mountains, this is exactly what happened because of the actions of those bastards. Asel asks if he thinks that the masterminds behind this incident are also Nebula Clazier. Ronan says that it is just a guess for now, and says to investigate the area that contains the main cause of this incident. The hero thinks that since prohibition isn't working, the one who can find them with that special mana is only him. Meanwhile, a large number of monsters and goblins start to gather up in some places. The redhead says that it seems that they have subjugated all of the ground monsters in the area for now. He sits on a monster's shoulder and says that it was a shame if it weren't for Lord Varen's order, he would have passed severe punishment upon the non-believers of this area. Suddenly all the monsters start to tremble and make weird sounds. The redhead wonders what is wrong with them and why they are acting as if they were terrified. He says that they shouldn't be able to feel any emotion since they are in a state of brainwashing. Suddenly, a menacing-looking beast appears in the dark. Its eyes glow and it exudes an overwhelming aura. The redhead looks there and starts to lose his marbles. He looks at the huge scimitar and the pitch-black tiger that seems to be wrapped in shadows. He is surprised how it can be possible. The beast looks at Redhead with a wrathful expression and says that this is where he seems to be hiding. With an instance, he appears before the Redhead and grabs him by the face. Before he could say anything else, the beast rips his head clean off from his lifeless body. The monsters try to attack the beast out of fear, but he makes quick work of them with a single slash from his scimitar. The beast stands there and says that the hunt has just begun. This menacing-looking tiger turns out to be Sword Saint Jaipa Turgung. Ronan and Asel arrive at a checkpoint and find that it has already been taken under control. The people who have taken over it aren't even normal soldiers. They were humans. One of the soldiers shouted and asked everyone to stop. He tells everyone that there will be no entry through this castle gate other than related parties today. He asks them to wait or take another route. He tells them that these are the orders of the Imperial Army's elite forces commander, who has currently entered the monster conquest, Jaipa Turgung. Ronan thinks it is the same Jaipa who is the commander of the Imperial's strongest forces, the Elite Force. He was also the one who beat Instructor Nabaros to become the strongest swordsman in the Empire, the Sword Saint Jaipa. Asel says that if the Sword Saint personally came, that means the situation must be grave. Ronan says that there is no way the most elite force of the Empire moved just because of a few monsters. The hero thinks that it seems his guess was right, and Nebula Clazier must be involved in this incident too. He asks Femboy to be ready to use telekinesis because they are going past the walls to investigate the nearby forests. He says that their traces are definitely there. Both of them start to head out. Meanwhile, Aqua is riding wyverns in the sky and thinks to herself that her connection got cut with her brother on ground. She wonders if something has happened, but she decides to follow the plan and control the wyverns. She is scared that if the plan didn't go out as planned, then Varen will definitely punish her. She tells her wyverns to follow the planned route, and that it won't do her any good to make too many changes to the plan. Ronan and Asel stand on the ground. The hero asks Dollface to begin, and she starts to use her telekinesis and hits one of the wyverns with a giant boulder. She then explodes that boulder into small pieces and hits multiple other wyverns. Aqua is in a state of shock as she wonders how can a boulder of that size be manipulated like that. She says that it has to be the top mage of the Mage Tower for that to be possible. Just then, Ronan leaps into the sky and appears before a wyvern. He says that this wyvern, who is soon to be his scapegoat, is the perfect size to test out his real sword chi. His body starts to glow red as he powers up his attack, and with a single swing, he cuts off Wyvern's head clean off from his body. He says that this turned out to be way stronger than what he had expected. The current range and force are incomparable to when he didn't channel mana into it. Aqua falls on her knees and says, "How did something like this happen?" Ronan lands on her Wyvern and says that it was obvious where guys this big can go without being seen in the area. He tells her that he is native of this neighborhood and calls them idiot bastards. Aqua is pissed and starts to power up to launch an attack on him. However, her arm gets cut off by Ronan before she could pull up any tricks. He apologizes to Aqua and tells her that he is kind of new to this, and he was just trying to cut off her hand, but it seems that he had cut it all off. Aqua looks down at her missing arm and shrieks in pain, and tears begin to roll from her eyes. Ronan moves closer to her and says that she is just a low-ranking pawn, and she couldn't have planned all this. He asks her if there are more of them. Aqua cries and says that it hurts, and she needs treatment. Ronan asks her to remain silent, and says that there are countless villages that got wrecked because of them, but she is complaining over something like this. He tells her to stop crying and demands to know just what they are up to. Ronan points the sword at the woman, demanding to know what they are up to. He states how countless villages got wrecked because of them, and it irritates him that she is just whining. The woman is terrified, but she answers back with arrogance that she, the torch, is chosen to bear the light of stars, and she won't let him stand in her grand mission. Ronan gets surprised when the woman emits a yellow glow as if she is burning. Before the hero could figure out what is going on, a wyvern appears in the sky, having sharp claws, and is directly focused on its target. The hero couldn't see it but could sense it, so he looked back. While he tenses up, the woman laughs. However, the hero realizes that the wyvern was so high up in the air that he couldn't sense it. Even though he wouldn't give up, the woman is so full of herself that she reminds him that it is too late since the wyvern is the most powerful one she caught here, and it would be swallowing up the likes of him in one gulp. Unexpectedly, the wyvern was sliced in half as something pierced through it. It happened so fast that both Ronan and the woman were shocked. As the body of the wyvern fell on each side, it revealed the shadow of the one who slashed it. It looked a white tiger with a weapon in his hand. The woman on the ground grunts with frustration, not understanding how this happened. However, she screamed at the tiger, Zifa, since she didn't want him there. Gritting his teeth, Ronan realizes that it is the Swordmaster. Zifa notices the hero standing dumbfoundedly before him. Instantly, he let out claw-like air blades from his hand. Seeing the blades, the hero is stunned, being nervous as the blades come towards them. However, those blades were for the wyvern, as the blades slice the wyvern's head as well. Ronan is amazed and scared at how the Lion King has handled the wyvern without even having the need to draw his hand. He tore right through that wyvern with his bare hands. The hero wonders how all of this is possible. However, just then an explosion occurred, and the area was destroyed by Zifa. Now that bastard stands on the woman while he grabs Ronan from his throat, raising him higher in the air. His big feet were crushing the woman while he choked our boy. He then demands from the hero to answer who he is. He is asking this because he doesn't sense the wild-eyed obsessiveness of those fanatics in him. Gasping for air and struggling, the hero insults Zifa, calling him a cat, and threatens to kill him for comparing him to those dirty freaks. The hero's anger was very evident, and because of that, he grips his sword and tells Zifa to shut up and get his paw off him. Suddenly, without letting him know, Ronan swings his sword, but the Lion King dodges the attack. Even after that, the hero attacks one more time and stumbles on the ground, when Zifa stands there, letting the attack hit him. The hero is groaning in frustration because the opponent is so powerful. The hero knew this attack was going to be blocked anyway, but the annoying part is that he just stood right there and let the hero hit him like it was nothing. He realizes that the Lion King didn't take the title of Swordmaster from Professor Navarros for nothing, and he is pretty sure that he cannot beat this guy, no matter how hard he tries. Though Ronan is sure of one thing, he can't just stand around and wait for him to attack. Thus, Rana decides to attack now while his guard is down. Zifa notices Ronan's determination in his eyes and acknowledges how true of a warrior he is. Hearing this, the hero is surprised, but the Lion King suggests that they should introduce themselves more officially. Stepping forward, towering over the hero, he orders him to raise his blade. Not understanding anything, Tiger Eyes stands there puzzled. With that, Zifa holds the spear from the front SSE and dead center and reveals that he is going for the vertical slash. Instantly, he lunges the spear towards Ronan, challenging him to block it. Just as Tiger Eyes deflects the assault, a powerful explosion rocks the area, sending shockwaves everywhere. Debris flows in the area. The Lion King is impressed even though Ronan still lacks strength. However, Rana still defended the blow flawlessly. Zifa also notices that Tiger Eyes' movements are familiar. Out of curiosity, he asks if by any chance Ronan is one of Navarros' students. Upon hearing this, sweat trickles down Tiger Eyes' forehead, but he reveals that he is the student at Philian Academy. Sarcastically, he questions if Zifa is planning to take admission there. As their swords clash, Ronan clarifies that they would never accept someone like you, and more importantly, he would personally refuse to allow someone who picks on weak, innocent students into the academy. The Lion King scoffs. commenting on how bold Tiger Eyes is, just like his teacher probably, as he is sure now that Tiger Eyes is lying about Filian Academy. Standing there, Zifa apologizes for the unpleasant greeting, clarifying that sometimes even a brief duel can tell him more about someone than many words. He assumes that Tiger Eyes could understand, as he is a warrior too. That being said, Tiger Eyes smiles and instantly charges forward, declaring to offer Zifa a little greeting of his own as well. However, the moment Tiger Eyes' sword was about to strike the Lion King, his attacks were interrupted by two werebeast warriors. One of them dodges the attack with his sword while the other grabs Ronan by his throat. Vare, the hyena werebeast and third squad commander within the Zifa unit, confirms from Zifa if this guy is one of the fanatics too. While Betty, the bear werebeast and the second squad commander, is sure that the guy is one of the fanatics and encouraged to resolve it by themselves. Just then, Betty grabs him by the neck and throws him on the ground. Ronan is taken aback and regains his footing as he glares at them. Attacking with his claw, Betty runs forward to attack Tiger Eyes but ends up being startled when Ronan manages to slip behind him. While Ronan lunges with his sword, Betty praises him for having some guts. Now both of them have swords pointed at their necks. The woman who has pointed a sword at them orders them to stop. The woman, Nemia, the lion werebeast and unit commander, scolds Betty for fighting in front of Captain Sypha without his permission. She asks Betty if he needs some sense in himself. However, that is when the Lion King approaches them all with Vare and informs Betty that the boy he is fighting is not an enemy, as he was simply responding to his greeting. The moment Betty hears this, he gets shocked when he realizes that the boy survived Zifa's attack from his crescent blade. The more surprising part is that no one in the unit is able to dodge these attacks. However, things get cleared when he reveals that it is not surprising since the kid is a Navarro student. Betty shivers with fear when he realizes that he is talking about that monstrous former swordmaster who alone wiped out their unit. Instantly, Betty's attitude towards Ronan shifts. He grabs Tiger Eyes' hand and apologizes for his quick temper. With that, Betty nervously insists that he keep this between them and not mention it to his teacher. Seeing this behavior, he wondered what Professor Navarros did to make the bear this terrified. Ignoring all this, Zifa is talking to Nemia, and seeing her, it makes it clear that they have completed the assignment. Nemia admits and explains that they exterminated all the monsters in the area, and any suspicious person who might belong to the fanatics was captured alive. Before Ronan could figure out what they were talking about, he saw tons of silhouettes jumping, their paws landing on the ground, and now they stand in front of Zifa and his team. Tiger Eyes is confused, not understanding what all this is. However, the Lion King approaches Ronan and introduces himself officially. Zifa explains that he is the captain of the Empire's most elite werebeast unit, and on the Emperor's strictest orders, he has been charged with rooting out members of Nebula Clasier hiding within the Empire. Accordingly, the Emperor has made him the leader of the Nebula Clasier as eradication unit, and his name is Zifa Torgon. Upon hearing all this, Ronan is shocked to hear that there is a Nebula Clasier eradication unit. At that same moment, in another part of the Romera Mountains, Nimberton Knights were on the street, and people were gawking at them, confused as to why the Knights were here. Iriel, our boy's elder sister, is puzzled. However, Schlieffen, the Knight of the Grantia family and the friend of Ronan, apologizes for alarming her. He explains that he was in such a hurry to assemble the Knights that there was no time to let her know about their arrival. With that, Schlieffen kneels down and introduces himself. Swearing, he claims to assist with her relocation to the imperial capital. Gazing upon her, Schlieffen's cheeks grow warmer due to a blush, yet he suggests that they should begin by packing up her belongings. Back to Ronan, he stands at his place frozen, not believing that there is a Nebula Clasier eradication unit. He lowers his gaze with confusion because the last he remembered, there was no such unit in his last life. He wonders if maybe the Empire decides to take action after hearing about the members of Nebula Clasier that he caught. Even so, he didn't expect them to make Zifa the unit leader. Though Ronan didn't understand one thing, and asked him how they will be going to find the members who are hiding their identities, and are all hidden all over the place. Our boy mentions how he had heard interrogating them using the binding spell doesn't work anymore. Zifa comments on how it seemed like Ronan knew more than he expected, and questions if Navarros explained all that. When he heard the question, Ronan was about to answer when someone nervously called out his name. Our boy looks back, and it is Acel, who looks scared to death because the werebeast, Vare, is holding him in the air by his clothes. Dolphus cries, asking for help from our boy. Ignoring the whining, the Vare reports that he found this kid roaming suspiciously in the area, so he brought him here to interrogate. Looking at him angrily, the Vare asks for permission from Zifa to execute the kid because he is so done with his crying. However, poor cutie keeps clarifying how he was just looking for his friend. He begs Vare to not eat him. Witnessing all this, the Lion King asks Ronan to confirm if this kid is his friend. Embarrassed, he admits that he is his friend. Later on, at night, Nemea informs the commander about eliminating all the suspicious creatures and monsters in the area. She reports how Nebula Clazier has been brainwashing monsters to cause trouble everywhere, but that is no more than a distraction. Basically, their target lies in the center of the mountains. Upon receiving all the information, Zifa confirms if by the center of the mountains, Nemea means the mountain pass in the Romera Mountains. The mountain pass in the Romera Mountains is one of the Empire's main trade routes, and a third of all the trade in the Empire passed through here. Probably Nebula Clazier is trying to bring down one of the main pillars of the Imperial economy since the effects would be disastrous. This is the reason it is not strange that those fanatics would use monsters to target the mountain pass. But Ronan wondered how. The woman with the other fanatics is captured and asks what he would do. Ignoring that, he explains that the mountain is very important and it has harsh security measures. He adds that it is not an easy place that they can destroy just from causing chaos through a few monsters. Just then, Ronan points the blade at the woman's neck and threatens them that if they want to go out alive, they should spill whatever they are hiding. The woman gets nervous. Sweat coats her face, but then a smirk appears on her face. She challenges him to guess if something like that would be scaring them. Instantly, she calls him a filthy non-believer, and abruptly, a bright light is being emitted, enveloping the surroundings. All those fanatics gather their mana together in one place. Moreover, they start chanting some spell, acknowledging they couldn't finish their mission and blaming themselves for failing. But they're not giving up. They beg for every bit of strength left in their spirit to keep fighting. They want to use their power to burn away their enemies, who stand in the way of their goals. As the incantation spell completes, a fireball appears, shines brightly, and then explodes. Its intensity was so much that it reached the farthest part of the forest. Some fanatics of the nebula feel it through the air. They understood that their companions have already had to make a noble sacrifice, and that is when they realized that normal believers are not enough to buy time against the Zifa force. An old man, Baron expresses how unfortunate it is to witness the sacrifice of such precious believers. However, one of the members suggests Baron try catching Zifa another day, as holding him back is difficult. Though, he knows that if they do this, then it will give him and his team more time to prepare, and it would be more difficult to accomplish the grand mission. Thus he declares no more delays. Acknowledging that this is not the center of the mountain, Baron places a detonator on the ground, deciding to begin their plan right here on the side of the Romera Mountains. He announces to strike at the infidels with the full force of their anger and rage. Just as he places the object, a magic circle appears on the ground, while the object stays in the middle. It's a detonator made by the great inventor Alabrige, consisting of 30 handcrafted spells all stacked upon one another. After absorbing the mana from the vein, the 30 layers of amplification spells will act as a detonator and will burn the area into ashes. Baron knows that the enemy is sure to sense an unusual change in the nearby mana flow, so they just have to protect the device from them until it has absorbed enough mana. Evan, the former captain of the Sierra Knights, and Brua, the former senior mage of the Green Magic Tower, take Baron's commands, assuring him they will not let him down. Evan communicated to Baron that he heard that after this mission, he will be taking over as the branch leader since the mighty Brigia fell in battle. He wonders if the old man has received the blessing by any chance. Chuckling, the old man admits that he has, and usually the blessing is granted only after the official completion of one's mission. However, this mission required them to protect themselves from an extremely powerful explosion. Accordingly, the Great Leaf has already blessed Baron in advance. Obviously, his power is nothing compared to that of the Great Brigia, but as long as he has this blessing, nothing will be able to harm them. The moment he was about to talk more, a paw stomped and a blast occurred out of nowhere. Baron is caught off guard, but before he or his team gets injured, he creates a shield around Evan, Brua, and himself to be saved from the sudden strikes that are being done by Zifa. The old man expresses how shocked he is, as it is impossible to do so soon after they began absorbing mana to detect a change in the mana flow and to track them down here. Zifa stood there firm, reminding them that there is nothing that can protect them from him, and he was aware of where these pathetic wretches were, since he was just waiting for them to reveal their true intentions. While wearing an intimidating look, he told them they are merely prey, blinded by pride, and felt thrilled to see how long they could resist his power. 10 minutes before the encounter, Zifa sees how the captured fanatics are using some sort of mana spell to blow themselves up. Tightening his grip on the spear, he orders Nemea to stand back with the other unit members, and he will take care of it, but Ronan has already made a move, leaving everyone surprised. Leaping higher into the air, Ronan charges forward, cutting through and swinging his sword. Yet eventually he steps away on the ground. The captured enemies are stunned. They couldn't believe that their dying flame was extinguished. Out of the blue, Ronan uses his sword. The woman's head was cut off from behind, and the other men experience the same. Blood gushes out of their bodies as their bodies lie on the ground. Our boy looks back, being glad that they are all dead for messing around like that. In his head, Zifa is surprised. He is aware that this was not a simple power that offset the magic. Looking at Ronan, he is certain that our boy cut through the mana itself. Right then, our boy calls for him, being sure that he knows how these people are. They are as slippery as a bunch of eels, so if he would have let them go, they would have come back with some more shitty plan, and judging by how hard they tried to cover everything up, he is certain that this is not the last of them. He is damn sure that at least one of their leaders is somewhere around as well. Approaching Zifa, Ronan questions him if he has a way to hunt the head of the Nebula Clasier Eradication Unit, and if it is the case, then he will help him, no matter what happens. He promises to make sure the Lion King will be rewarded by the Emperor. Back to the present, Baron and his men are facing the Lion King. The old man is scared. He didn't sense any mana nearby until the moment Zifa attacked them. In other words, the Lion King didn't even use mana just now. That blast was created by a purely physical attack. Baron had heard a lot about Swordmaster Sypha, but the old man realized that he is even more of a beast than he ever imagined. At that moment, Baron asks his men if they are ready for this, as they have got a previous guest on their hands. Evan and Brua had already brought out their weapons. Stepping forward, they declared they would sacrifice their lives gladly for the sake of their duty. Evan's body glows with a special kind of energy while Brua supports him from behind. Zifa sees their combination, a knight-mage duo and both very advanced. He sighs, wishing to have brought the rest of his unit as well since it would have been a good training opportunity for them. Instantly, Evan rushes forward, wielding his sword, but obviously it is stopped by the Lion King. He wonders aloud if this too was fated, an honor duel with the strongest swordmaster in the Empire. As a fellow warrior, he sees it as a stroke of fortune he simply can't ignore. With that, he provokes him to show him more of his sword skills. He thinks of breaking Zifa's sword, then he will have the honor of joining their ranks. While he is blabbering, Evan's eyes widen with shock because instead of Zifa's swords, his sword snaps with just a simple punch from the Lion King. As the shards of the sword fall, Evan sees his plan crumbling as well. Zifa brings up what Evan said earlier about the battle with honor and all. However, he is livid about the incompetent fool like him speaking of honor in his presence. In a single strike, the warrior beheaded him, his body falling on the ground, calling him a disgrace to true warriors. Witnessing all this, Brua knew it's his turn now, but before he could activate the mana shield, his body was cut in half. In addition to that, he tries kicking the old man, but the old man has activated his own shield, blocking all the attacks. Seeing his face, Zifa found him familiar, realizing he had been hiding behind his small fries. More than 10 years ago, in the village of Arden in the west, over 1,000 innocent people were dead in a black magic experiment. Then, the culprit who did all of this vanishes as if he never existed. It is Baron, the evil of Arden. Smiling, Baron feels honored since the mighty swordmaster recognized him. He shares how he has long abandoned his past disgrace and now is a servant of the stars. Ignoring all that bullshit, Zifa claws at the shield, crushing it while clarifying he doesn't care who he is now because it doesn't change the fact that he must be punished for his crimes. Though Baron stands there smirking as he activates the Blessing of the Stars spell. As some weird kind of energy envelops around them, Baron praises how he certainly made quick work of those two boys, and not even his finest warriors could hold him back for 1 second. He reveals that he is now understanding how exceptionally skilled of a swordmaster he is, but Baron knows that there is a limit even to his powers. He claims that Zifa must be mighty, but he is not strong enough to stand in the way of the celestial power granted to him. Maniacally laughing, he makes fun of him for being a mere mortal after all, living out his trivial existence under the light of the stars. After that, Baron wanted to hear how he feels after meeting the power of heavens. He was curious to hear Zifa's remarks. Yet, the warrior utters how foolish this is. Even in his final moments, Baron is still trapped in his mistaken beliefs. Approaching him slowly, the warrior calls him foolish, and this is why he will die because he is also prey blinded by pride and delusions. Zifa's spear glows as he swings it fiercely. That is when Baron attempts to shield himself. But at the same time, he can't help but notice how amazing and truly incredible Swordmaster Zifa is since he generated such great power. Baron tries to attack his ground, but the attack is so powerful that it is impossible to withstand it even with the shield. However, when the spell settles down, Zifa's weapon is still glowing after finishing his attack. Even after not being harmed, the old man is still surprised and anxious because of the warrior's performance. Even when he just used sword aura alone, he admitted to himself that he possesses great power and compares his abilities to them. However, Baron utters that it is unfortunate for Zifa, as the blessing of the stars is too much even in front of the great swordmaster. The moment these words leave Baron's mouth, he activates the detonator while challenging Zifa's abilities. As he speaks, he reveals to the warrior about the magic bomb absorbing mana from the mountains. With that, the old man advises him to retreat now and try again some other time. Perhaps if he runs now and saves himself, he might be able to escape the blast radius. And as for the weak ones, Baron states that they would turn into ashes on the mountains. Zifa stands there, understands that that power allows them to neutralize attacks, and also realizes that Ronan was right, that these guys are really some lowly jerks who are really a pain in the neck, and who could be a serious threat in the future. Zifa decides to do this properly, As an energy stream comes out of his body, he claims to get rid of them once and for all. Taking an attacking stance, he emits a blue aura out of his body and spear, and challenges how that so-called blessing of a star will be the coming attack that is about to strike. Baron sensed the pressure that far exceeded the previous attack and recognized that it could be Zifa's aura. Yet, he laughs at the struggles of a beast against the heavens. The powerful aura makes the debris shift. Though Baron wishes him to do his best, ignoring the comments, the warrior's eyes are determined, and his expression shows how much power he is pouring out for his next attack. His aura is at his limit and can be sensed more greatly, shaking the entire ground. But that's when someone suddenly shouts at Zifa, scolding him and questioning if he's in his right mind. It's Ronan. He yells that it's enough because if he doesn't stop, he will be blowing up the whole mountain himself before the bomb even goes off. Our boy reminds Zifa what they planned on doing here in the first place. Instantly, he calms himself down and notices Ronan has finally made it, but is slower than he looks. Our boy argues about how he was never called slow by someone, and it is basically Zifa's fault for being freakishly fast. Moreover, he suggests the warrior steps back for the time being, as he has seen the blessing of the star. Our boy is aware that he is strong and all, but there is no way he can block this guy Baron for now. He makes the warrior realize the seriousness of the situation. When Zifa agrees that Ronan is more suited to fight Baron, who stands stunned there for a second, wondering how a swordmaster like him let some kid speak to him so arrogantly, he wonders what special this kid has. As our boy steps forward, removing the sheath from his sword, he assures Baron that he owes him one because this crazy old man was so loud that Ronan grasped everything. So now he just has to kill this old jerk and deactivate the magic bomb behind him. With that, this whole mess will be over. With a sly smirk, our boy questions the old man if he really is the leader because, judging by that annoying blessing of his, he really must be some side character since he isn't half as strong as that crazy Brigia he hacked to pieces. Hearing Brigia's name, Baron stutters with confusion and wants to know how this kid knows her name because he thought Lord Brigia was defeated by Sarante. When he realizes that it was some brat like Ronan who killed her, his eyes widen with shock. Groaning in frustration, Baron's anger doubles, and he can't believe someone like this kid insulted Brigia's honor with that shitty mouth. Because of all the anger, the old man summons tentacles on his back and declares to tear him apart in pieces. While being livid, he shares how Brigia was one of the precious believers and was the most honorable warrior, who rose to the position of the branch leader through her own hardships, strength, and merit. He states how she was a model of nobility, and now he cannot digest that someone who is a nobody like Ronan with such shitty mana even made a scratch on her. As he speaks with anger, the tentacles now take the shape of creatures like snakes, having eyes and sharp teeth, as Baron declares that he has had enough of our boy's filthy lies, and the fact that a non-believer like this kid knows Brigia's name means he must have witnessed her death in person. The snake-like creatures hover over Ronan and roar loudly as he demands to know what happened that day. At this point, Baron only wants to hear the truth. Grinning, Tiger Eyes stood firm with his bloodshot eyes and claimed that if the old man is so eager to know the truth, he can simply show him what happened that day. With that, Ronan moves so fast, it is almost impossible to see him or his shadow, and in an instant approaches the old man. When he spots Ronan in front of him after outsmarting those dumb snake-like creatures, Baron understands that this kid was not bluffing, and insults that he might even be worthy of a position as Baron's assistant. But still, he denies that Brigia would lose to someone at Tiger Eyes' level even if he did manage to shock her. Baron is just about to say that Tiger Eyes wouldn't have made it past the blessing of stars, but before he can finish, he's beheaded. The old man was so confident of the blessing, but now he was bleeding to death. His eyes were wide open when his body ended up on the ground as the swift movement of Ronan's sword struck his body. Approaching Baron's head near the magic bomb while deactivating it, Ronan mockingly remembers aloud how that crazy Brigia used to yap like him, but both of them ended up the same way. Glaring at his head on the ground, Tiger Eyes looks into Baron's eyes and asks if that was enough to satisfy his curiosity. Baron's head could still think, and he still finds it impossible that a young child's blade could pierce through the blessing of stars and cut him in half. Baron is aware now that this kid's power seems to transcend all laws of nature. It almost reminds him of their leader. He wonders who Ronan is, but not giving him any chance, Tiger Eyes slices his head crosswise before he could process his thoughts. Stepping forward, Zifa asks Ronan if he killed that old jerk. Without hesitating, Tiger Eyes explains that he didn't want to leave any loose ends. He is aware of what the ordinary believers have done, and he can't even imagine what sort of catastrophe one of their leaders could create. Now that they are starting to act more, they will have to watch out for them for a while. Zifa finds it a very wise judgment, as they should not be blinded by the desire to achieve their goal. It does frustrate him that he missed the chance to properly fight the blessing of the stars. He assumes that he might have found a clue if he fought him just one more time. But Ronan doesn't agree because the warrior would have likely blown up his entire homeland in the process. He points out the disaster Zifa did to the forest with his sword aura